Jason Brown's hand trembles as he pushes open the ornate door, stumbling into the private chambers of King Zoran and Queen Hera of the Jem'Hadar. The sight before him freezes him in place. The alien royal couple, caught in an intimate embrace, their iridescent skins shimmering in the dim light of Xylox's twin moons. What is the meaning of this intrusion? King Zoran's voice booms, his multifaceted eyes flashing with anger. Queen Hera, a vision of alien beauty, draws back, her gaze fixed on Jason with a mixture of outrage and curiosity. Jason's mind races. This diplomatic mission to Xylox was supposed to be routine. Now he's committed a grievous faux pas that could doom humanity's chances against the impending Krell invasion. Your Majesties, I apologize. There's been a terrible mistake. But as Jason turns to flee, King Zoran's tone shifts. Wait, human. Perhaps this accident is fortuitous. The king's antennae twitch, a sign of deep contemplation in Jem'Hadar body language. We find ourselves intrigued by your physiology. Queen Hera glides forward, her movements liquid grace. Indeed, we've never had the opportunity to examine a human so closely. Her voice is melodic, almost hypnotic. Jason's pulse quickens as the implications dawn on him. The Jem'Hadar, known for their unique reproductive biology, require a third party to catalyze their mating process. It's a sacred ritual, one never before shared with an outsider. King Zoran's proposal comes like a bolt from the blue. Jason Brown of Earth, we invite you to join us in our mating ritual. The human diplomat's mind reels. This is unprecedented, shocking, and yet the Jem'Hadar possess technology that could save humanity from the Krell. An alliance with them could turn the tide of the coming war. As Jason wrestles with the decision, Queen Hera approaches. Her scent is intoxicating, her eyes pools of starlight. Your participation would be a great honor, she purrs, and perhaps mutually beneficial. The weight of two civilizations settles on Jason's shoulders. He opens his mouth to respond, but before he can, alarms blare throughout the royal palace. The harsh sound cuts through the tension like a plasma blade. King Zoran rushes to a holographic display. Krell warships, they've breached our outer defenses. Impossible, Queen Hera gasps. Unless they've developed a new technology, Jason finishes, cold dread settling in his stomach. King Zoran turns back to Jason, his expression grave. Human, our offer now comes with higher stakes. Complete the ritual with us, and we'll grant you access to our most advanced defensive systems. With them, you might yet save your people. Time seems to slow as Jason considers his options. Engage in an alien mating ritual and secure humanity's survival, or refuse and potentially doom both their species to Krell dominion. The palace shudders under the first wave of Krell bombardment. Jason looks from King Zoran's stern face to Queen Hera's alluring form. Two worlds hang in the balance. With a deep breath, he makes his choice. I accept, Jason said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. The words hung in the air for a moment, heavy with the weight of their implications. King Zoran nodded solemnly. Then we must act quickly. The palace shuddered again, dust raining down from the ornate ceiling. Queen Hera glided forward, her movements fluid and purposeful. This way, she said, her melodic voice tinged with urgency. Jason followed the royal couple through a series of winding corridors, the sounds of battle growing more intense with each passing moment. They arrived at an intricately carved door that seemed to pulse with an inner light. The sacred chamber, King Zoran explained, pressing his palm against the door. It slid open silently, revealing a space that took Jason's breath away. The room was alive with bioluminescence. Strange, undulating plants cast a soft, ethereal glow across the walls. Crystals of various sizes and shapes pulsated in rhythm, as if keeping time with some unheard cosmic heartbeat. The air was thick with an intoxicating scent that made Jason's head swim. Queen Hera stepped into the center of the chamber, her iridescent skin seeming to absorb and reflect the ambient light. She began to move, her body flowing through a series of intricate gestures. The air around her shimmered, and Jason felt a wave of something indescribable wash over him. "The pheromones," King Zoran murmured, his multifaceted eyes fixed on his mate. "They are crucial to our reproductive process." Jason's skin tingled as he breathed in the sweet, alien scent. King Zoran took his hand, guiding him closer to Queen Hera. "Now we dance," the king said, his voice low and intense. What followed was unlike anything Jason had ever experienced. It was a dance, yes, but also so much more. Energy crackled around them as they moved, their bodies intertwining in ways that defied human understanding of physics and biology. Jason felt as if he was simultaneously solid matter and pure energy, his consciousness expanding beyond the confines of his physical form. Through the haze of sensation, Jason became aware of Queen Hera's touch. Her fingers trailed along his arm, leaving a trail of tingling warmth. Where their skin made contact, he saw faint tendrils of light, like living threads connecting them. King Zoran's voice rumbled in his ear, guiding him through unfamiliar movements. "Feel the energy flow through you, between us. We are creating something new, something never before seen in the universe." As the ritual intensified, Jason's perception shifted. He could see, no, feel, the intricate web of energy that connected all living things. It was as if a veil had been lifted, revealing the underlying structure of reality itself. Suddenly, a commotion outside the chamber broke through the trance-like state. The door burst open, revealing a tall, imposing Jem'Hadar warrior. His eyes widened at the scene before him. "Your Majesties!" he exclaimed. "The Krell have breached the inner defenses. We need—" He broke off, staring at Jason in shock. King Zoran turned, his antenna twitching in irritation. "General Krix, this interruption is most unwelcome." The general's gaze darted between the three figures, comprehension dawning on his face. "The sacred ritual with a human?" His voice was a mixture of awe and disbelief. Before anyone could respond, a blinding surge of energy filled the chamber. Jason felt it course through him, every cell in his body singing with power. When the light faded, he looked down at his hands in amazement. His skin now possessed a faint, shimmering quality, not unlike that of the Jem'Hadar. King Zoran smiled, a look of triumph on his alien features. "It is done. Come, we must make haste to the command center." As they hurried through the palace halls, Jason marveled at his newfound senses. He could perceive energy fields around him, the ebb and flow of power through the very walls of the structure. They arrived at a vast chamber filled with holographic displays and bustling with activity. General Krix immediately stepped up to a central console, his fingers flying over the controls. "The Krell have developed some new form of shielding," he reported grimly. "Our weapons are barely making a dent." Jason approached the console, drawn by an instinct he couldn't explain. As he reached out to touch the alien interface, information flooded his mind. He could see the battle unfolding in perfect detail. Every ship, every weapon, every energy signature. "There," he said, pointing to a specific area of the display. "Their shields have a fluctuation pattern. If we time our attacks to that rhythm, we can break through." General Krix stared at him in surprise, then quickly began implementing the strategy. King Zoran placed a hand on Jason's shoulder, his touch sending a jolt of energy through the human's body. "Your human perspective, combined with the gifts of our ritual, may be the key to our survival," the king said. As Jason immersed himself deeper in the Jem'Hadar systems, he became aware of a constant undercurrent of connection to King Zoran and Queen Hera. It was as if invisible threads linked their minds, allowing for instantaneous communication and shared understanding. With this newfound synergy, Jason began to formulate a counter-strategy against the Krell. He could see possibilities and connections that had eluded the Jem'Hadar, his human creativity enhanced by alien insight. "We need to reconfigure the planetary defense grid," Jason said, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "If we create a resonance field here and here, we can disrupt their entire attack formation." General Krix watched in amazement as the human manipulated their most advanced systems with ease. "By the sacred stars," he muttered, "this could change everything." As the combined human and Jem'Hadar forces prepared to launch their counterattack, Jason felt the weight of two civilizations resting on his shoulders. The bond forged in that sacred chamber had given him incredible power and knowledge. But would it be enough to turn the tide against the Krell? With a deep breath, Jason gave the command to execute their new strategy. The fate of Earth and Xylox hung in the balance as energy weapons flared to life, their beams lancing out toward the Krell armada. The energy weapons flared to life, their beams lancing out towards the Krell armada. For a moment it seemed as if the combined might of human ingenuity and Jem'Hadar technology would turn the tide. But as the initial volley faded, the Krell ships remained largely unscathed, their new shielding absorbing much of the impact. Jason's newfound connection to the Jem'Hadar systems buzzed with alarming data. Their defenses are adapting, he reported, his fingers flying over the holographic interface. We need to... His words were cut short by a violent tremor that shook the entire palace. Alarms blared as a massive energy signature appeared on the tactical display. Krell scout ship, General Krix shouted. It's breached our perimeter. Before anyone could react, the ship crashed into the royal gardens with a deafening roar. The impact sent a shockwave through the palace's power grid, causing the lights to flicker and systems to falter. Jason felt the change immediately. His connection to the Jem'Hadar network became fuzzy, like static on an old radio. The defense systems, he said, his voice tight with concern. They're offline. King Zoran's antenna twitched in agitation. Impossible. Our safeguards... Look, Queen Hera interrupted, pointing to a secondary display. The screen showed grainy footage from the garden. Amidst the wreckage of the Krell ship, dark figures were emerging. Their movements were swift and purposeful, clearly unhindered by the crash. Jason's enhanced senses tingled. Something about the way the figures moved set off alarm bells in his mind. They're here, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. In the palace. General Krix's eyes widened. How can you be certain? I can feel them, Jason replied, struggling to articulate the strange new awareness that coursed through him. They're using some kind of stealth technology. Our sensors can't detect them, but I can sense their presence. The general immediately sprang into action, barking orders into his communicator. All units, intruder alert. Secure the command center and all vital areas. As Jem'Hadar warriors rushed to fortify their positions, Queen Hera approached Jason. Her eyes, like pools of liquid starlight, searched his face. Your transformation, she said softly. It's progressing faster than we anticipated. Before Jason could respond, another tremor shook the palace. This time it was accompanied by the distant sound of weapons fire. They're getting closer, King Zoran said grimly. We need to move. Now! Queen Hera nodded, her expression resolute. Follow me, she commanded, leading them towards a seemingly blank wall. With a graceful gesture, she pressed her palm against an inconspicuous panel. A hidden door slid open, revealing a narrow passageway. The sacred armory, King Zoran explained as they hurried into the secret corridor. It houses our most powerful weapons. As they moved through the dimly lit passage, Jason's senses remained on high alert. He could feel the Krell presence growing stronger, more focused. They were hunting, searching for something or someone. The group emerged into a vast chamber that took Jason's breath away. Racks of sleek, otherworldly weapons lined the walls. Pulsing crystals and glowing orbs of various sizes were scattered throughout the room, their purpose a mystery to the human diplomat. Without hesitation, Queen Hera approached a pedestal in the center of the room. She lifted an elegant rifle-like weapon, its surface adorned with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and flow. These are Mertavel, she explained, handing the weapon to Jason. Energy rifles capable of piercing even Krell battle armor. As soon as Jason's fingers closed around the weapon, information flooded his mind. He suddenly understood its function, its capabilities, as if he had trained with it for years. Incredible, he murmured, testing its weight and balance. King Zoran and General Krix were also arming themselves, donning what appeared to be personal shield generators. The king turned to Jason, his multifaceted eyes glinting in the low light. Your connection to our technology is unprecedented, he said. Quickly, show the others how to operate the Mertavel. Jason nodded, surprised at his own confidence as he began explaining the weapon's functions to the Jem'Hadar warriors. His words flowed easily, drawing upon knowledge he didn't realize he possessed. As they prepared for battle, a sudden stillness fell over the group. Jason's enhanced senses screamed a warning just as Queen Hera gasped, her antenna quivering. "They've breached the command center," she said, her melodic voice tight with tension. General Krix growled in frustration. "We must return immediately. If they access our tactical systems—" "No," King Zoran interrupted, his tone brooking no argument. "The command center is lost. We must focus on restoring the palace defenses." A moment of silent communication seemed to pass between the king and queen. Then Queen Hera turned to Jason, her eyes intense. "We have a plan," she said, "but it will require perfect coordination and trust." Jason felt a surge of energy course through him, the bond forged in the sacred chamber pulsing with renewed strength. He nodded, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. "Jason and I will create a diversion," Queen Hera explained. "We'll draw the Krell's attention while King Zoran and General Krix work to restore the defense systems." As she spoke, Jason felt a new connection forming. Suddenly, he could sense Queen Hera's thoughts, her intentions, as clearly as if they were his own. The sensation was disorienting but exhilarating. "Are you ready?" Queen Hera asked, her voice echoing both in his ears and in his mind. Jason gripped the Murtavel tightly, its energy humming in sync with his own. "Ready," he replied, surprised by the steadiness in his voice. With a final nod to King Zoran and General Krix, Jason and Queen Hera moved towards the armory's exit. As they stepped into the corridor beyond, Jason's senses sharpened further. He could almost see the energy signatures of the Krell invaders, moving like shadows through the palace. "This way," Queen Hera whispered, guiding him through a series of winding passages. Their movements were perfectly synchronized, each anticipating the other's actions with uncanny precision. As they rounded a corner, Jason suddenly froze. His enhanced perception picked up a cluster of energy signatures just ahead. "Krell," he mouthed silently to Queen Hera. She nodded, her eyes gleaming with a mixture of excitement and commitment. Through their mental link, Jason understood her intentions perfectly. It was time to spring their trap. Taking a deep breath, Jason readied his weapon. The fate of two worlds rested on their actions in the next few moments. With a shared glance of understanding, Human and Jem'Hadar prepared to face the Krell threat head-on. As Jason and Queen Hera faced the approaching Krell threat, a surge of energy coursed through Jason's body. He raised the Murtavel, its intricate patterns pulsing with power, and fired a concentrated burst at the lead Krell soldier. The beam struck true, but to Jason's surprise, the weapon began to overheat rapidly in his hands. "It's overloading," he shouted, his mind racing to understand the malfunction. Queen Hera's eyes widened. "Jason, release it!" Without hesitation, Jason hurled the rifle towards the advancing Krell. The weapon detonated in a brilliant flash of light, releasing a powerful electromagnetic pulse that rippled through the corridor. The Krell's advanced weaponry sputtered and died, leaving them momentarily defenseless. "Now," Queen Hera commanded, her voice ringing in Jason's mind as well as his ears. They surged forward, taking advantage of the Krell's disorientation. Jason's body moved with newfound grace and power, his strikes precise and devastating. Queen Hera fought beside him, her movements perfectly synchronized with his own. As they pressed their advantage, Jason felt a strange, tingling sensation coursing through his body. Suddenly, he thrust out his hand instinctively, and a shimmering field of energy materialized before him, deflecting a Krell soldier's desperate lunge. "How did I—" Jason began, astonished by this unexpected ability. Queen Hera's thoughts flowed into his mind. "Your transformation is accelerating. Use it." Embracing this new power, Jason became a living shield, creating localized force fields to protect Queen Hera and the Jem'Hadar soldiers who had joined their counteroffensive. The tide of battle shifted dramatically as the Krell found themselves unable to penetrate Jason's defenses. Through the chaos, Jason caught sight of a tall, imposing Krell figure barking orders. "Commander Zax!" Queen Hera's voice echoed in his mind. "Their leader!" Realizing the battle was lost, Commander Zax bellowed a command in the harsh Krell language. The invaders began a swift, organized retreat towards the crashed scout ship in the Royal Gardens. "We can't let them escape," Jason said, his voice tight with dedication. Queen Hera nodded, her antenna quivering with excitement. "Agreed, we must pursue." They raced through the palace corridors, Jason's enhanced senses guiding them toward the crash site. As they emerged into the devastated gardens, they saw the Krell frantically working to repair their damaged vessel. Jason's mind buzzed with sudden understanding as he gazed at the alien craft. "I can see their systems," he said, his voice filled with wonder. "There and there." He pointed out critical components to Queen Hera. "If we target those areas, we can prevent their escape." Queen Hera relayed the information to the Jem'Hadar forces, who adjusted their aim accordingly. Precision fire rained down on the Krell ship, disabling its primary systems and crushing any hope of reactivation. As the battle raged around the crash site, King Zorn and General Krix arrived with reinforcements, their weapons blazing. The combined human Jem'Hadar force quickly surrounded the remaining Krell, including the now-cornered Commander Zax. The Krell commander's eyes darted from side to side, assessing the situation. With a guttural growl of frustration, he dropped his weapon and raised his hands in surrender. A cheer went up from the Jem'Hadar soldiers as the last pockets of resistance crumbled. Jason felt a wave of relief wash over him, but it was quickly replaced by a strange sense of unease. He could feel the eyes of the Jem'Hadar on him, a mixture of awe and uncertainty in their gazes. General Krix approached, his expression a combination of respect and curiosity. "Your performance in battle was exceptional," he said, his voice gruff but sincere. "Perhaps there is a place for you within our military structure." Before Jason could respond, he felt Queen Hera's hand on his arm. The touch sent a jolt of electricity through him, their mental connection flaring with intensity. He turned to meet her gaze, seeing a depth of emotion there that both thrilled and terrified him. King Zorn stepped forward, his antennae twitching with excitement. "Jason," he said, his voice filled with possibility, "I believe we have only scratched the surface of your potential. There are other rituals, other transformations that could unlock even greater abilities within you." Jason's mind reeled at the implications. He could feel the weight of multiple worlds resting on his shoulders, the expectations of both humans and Jem'Hadar pressing in on him. The prospect of further altering his physiology both excited and unsettled him. As if sensing his inner turmoil, Queen Hera's thoughts brushed against his mind. "This is a choice only you can make," her mental voice whispered. "But know that whatever you decide, I will stand with you." Before Jason could formulate a response, a commotion near the captured Krell drew everyone's attention. General Krix was reviewing data from a recovered Krell device, his expression growing grave. "Your Majesties," he said, addressing King Zorn and Queen Hera, "we've intercepted communications indicating a much larger Krell force is gathering. This attack was merely a prelude." The air grew thick with tension as the implications sank in. Jason felt the familiar weight of responsibility settling onto his shoulders once more. Whatever decision he made about his future would have to wait. The war was just getting started, and the next battle promised to be even more devastating. As the Jem'Hadar began securing the prisoners and salvaging what they could from the crash site, Jason's mind raced with possibilities. His unique position between two worlds had never felt more precarious or more vital. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew that the choices he made in the coming days would shape not only his own destiny, but potentially the fate of multiple species in this ongoing interstellar conflict. As Jason contemplated the gravity of the situation, a messenger arrived, breathless and urgent. "Your Majesties," the messenger said, bowing hastily to King Zorn and Queen Hera, "the High Council has convened an emergency session. They request your immediate presence and that of the human Jason." Jason exchanged glances with Queen Hera, their mental link humming with shared apprehension and curiosity. As they made their way to the council chambers, Jason could feel the eyes of passing Jem'Hadar upon him, a mixture of awe and wariness in their gazes. The council chamber was a vast, circular room with tiered seating surrounding a central platform. As Jason entered alongside the royal couple, he felt the weight of dozens of multifaceted eyes upon him. The chamber buzzed with tension and whispered conversations. King Zoran stepped forward, his voice carrying effortlessly across the space. Esteemed council members, we stand at a pivotal moment in our history. The Krell threat looms larger than ever, yet we have found an unexpected ally in Jason, a human who has demonstrated extraordinary abilities and dedication to our cause. Queen Hera joined her mate, her melodic voice adding weight to his words. We propose further integration of Jason into our society. His unique perspective and rapidly developing abilities could be the key to our survival. General Crix, standing at attention nearby, spoke next. I concur with their majesties. Jason's performance in battle was exceptional. I recommend his immediate inclusion in our military operations. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Jason could sense the skepticism emanating from many of the council members. One, an older Jem'Hadar with deeply etched facial ridges, leaned forward. These claims are extraordinary, the elder said. We cannot base our strategies on mere words. If this human is truly as capable as you say, let him demonstrate his abilities before the council. Jason felt a surge of nervous energy. Queen Hera's thoughts brushed against his mind, a soothing presence. You can do this, her mental voice whispered. Taking a deep breath, Jason stepped onto the central platform. He closed his eyes, focusing on the energy coursing through his body. With a gesture, he created a shimmering force field around himself. The council members leaned forward, their antennae twitching with interest. Jason pushed further, drawing upon the knowledge that had inexplicably become part of him. He extended his hands, and arcs of energy danced between his fingertips. The display was impressive, but as he prepared to conclude the demonstration, something unexpected happened. A crystalline structure in the corner of the chamber, previously unnoticed by Jason, began to pulse with light. The energy emanating from Jason seemed to resonate with the crystal, causing it to glow brighter and brighter. Queen Hera gasped, her eyes wide with recognition. The nexus of melding, she breathed. It hasn't responded like this in centuries. The council chamber erupted in excited chatter. The elder who had spoken earlier rose to his feet, mandibles clicking rapidly. This is a sign, he declared. The nexus has awakened. It recognizes the potential in this human. King Zoran stepped forward, his voice cutting through the commotion. The nexus of melding is a sacred artifact used in ancient times to fully assimilate worthy aliens into our physiology. Its awakening can only mean one thing. He turned to face Jason, his expression solemn. Jason must undergo the rite of assimilation. The words sent a ripple of shock through the chamber. Jason's mind reeled, struggling to process the implications. Before he could gather his thoughts, the council elder spoke again. The council decrees that Jason shall face the trials of the rite of assimilation. His worthiness will be tested, and if he succeeds, he may undergo a further transformation. As the council members voiced their agreement, Jason felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. He turned to Queen Hera, seeking guidance through their mental link. Her thoughts were a whirlwind of emotions, pride, concern, and a deep sense of destiny. The first trial, King Zoran announced, will be the crucible of endurance. Jason must prove his physical prowess and adaptability in combat against our most elite warriors. As preparations for the trial began, a new complication arose. A Jem'Hadar aide rushed into the chamber, bowing deeply before delivering urgent news. Your Majesty's esteemed council members, the aide said, we've received a transmission from Earth. They're sending a delegation led by an Admiral Chen. Their stated purpose is to secure Jason's return and negotiate Earth's position in the alliance against the Krell. The news sent a jolt through Jason. His connection to Earth, which had seemed distant in the wake of recent events, suddenly reasserted itself. He realized that his actions now would have far-reaching consequences, not just for himself, but for the future of human Jem'Hadar relations. As the council chamber buzzed with this new development, Jason steeled himself for the challenges ahead. The crucible of endurance loomed before him, the first step in a journey that would test him in ways he could scarcely imagine. With the eyes of two worlds upon him, Jason prepared to face the trials that would determine not only his own fate, but potentially the outcome of the looming war with the Krell. Queen Hera's thoughts brushed against his mind once more, a mix of encouragement and something deeper, more personal. As Jason met her gaze, he realized that the trials ahead would test not just his physical and mental abilities, but his heart as well. With a nod to the council and a deep breath, Jason stepped forward, ready to face whatever challenges the rite of assimilation would bring. Would test not just his physical and mental abilities, but his heart as well. With a nod to the council and a deep breath, Jason stepped forward, ready to face whatever challenges the rite of assimilation would present. The first trial, the crucible of endurance, pushed Jason to his limits. For hours, he battled against the most elite Jem'Hadar warriors, his enhanced physiology allowing him to keep pace with their relentless attacks. As the trial concluded, Jason stood victorious, his body bruised but his spirit unbroken. However, there was little time to rest. As Jason caught his breath, King Zoran approached with news that would change everything. "Jason," the king said, his antennae twitching with anticipation, "the next trial awaits. You must face the Labyrinth of Minds." Before Jason could respond, a commotion at the entrance of the council chamber caught everyone's attention. A group of humans led by a stern-faced woman in a crisp naval uniform strode into the room. "Admiral Chen," King Zoran announced, his voice tight with surprise. "We weren't expecting your delegation so soon." The Admiral's eyes locked onto Jason, a mix of relief and concern evident in her gaze. "We came as quickly as we could," she said, her voice carrying the weight of authority. "I'm here to bring Jason home and discuss Earth's role in this alliance against the Krell." Jason felt a surge of conflicting emotions. The sight of his fellow humans stirred a longing for Earth he hadn't realized he'd been suppressing. Yet as he glanced at Queen Hera, he felt the pull of his new life among the Jem'Hadar. King Zoran, sensing the tension, stepped forward. "Admiral Chen, I understand your concerns. However, Jason has already begun the rite of assimilation. To interrupt it now could be dangerous for him and would be a grave insult to our traditions." Admiral Chen's fist tight, but before she could argue, the king continued, "I propose a compromise. You and your delegation will be allowed to observe the remaining trials. This will give you a chance to witness Jason's transformation firsthand and better understand our ways." The Admiral considered for a moment, then nodded reluctantly. "Agreed. But I want it on record that Earth has not consented to any permanent alterations to one of its citizens." With the compromise reached, attention turned back to Jason and the impending trial. Queen Hera approached, her eyes filled with a mixture of excitement and concern. "The Labyrinth of Minds is unlike anything you've faced before," she said softly. "It will test not just your mental strength, but your very sense of self." Jason nodded, steeling himself for what was to come. As he was led to the entrance of a vast crystalline structure, he could feel the weight of expectation from both the Jem'Hadar and the human delegation. The moment Jason stepped into the labyrinth, his senses were overwhelmed. The crystalline walls pulsed with energy, responding to his thoughts and emotions. He found himself in a twisting corridor that seemed to shift and change with each step. Suddenly, a group of Krell warriors materialized before him, their minds projecting into the labyrinth. Jason's hybrid mind raced, processing information faster than ever before. He dodged a psychic assault from one Krell, only to find himself vulnerable to another's mental probe. As he struggled to fend off the attacks, Jason felt a familiar presence brush against his mind. Queen Hera, observing from outside, had established a psychic link with him. Her mental voice was a beacon of calm in the chaos of the labyrinth. "Focus, Jason," her thoughts whispered. "Your human creativity combined with Jem'Hadar strength is your greatest asset. Use it." Drawing on Hera's guidance, Jason began to turn the tide. He visualized complex patterns of energy, using them to create psychic shields and weapons. The Krell projections, unused to such unorthodox tactics, began to falter. As Jason progressed deeper into the labyrinth, he became aware of physical changes occurring in his body. His skin took on a more pronounced Jem'Hadar texture, and he could feel new neural pathways forming in his brain. Outside the labyrinth, Admiral Chen watched in growing alarm as Jason's appearance shifted. She turned to King Zoran, her voice tight with concern. What exactly is happening to him? How far will these changes go? The king's expression was solemn as he replied, The rite of assimilation, if completed, will fundamentally alter Jason's genetic structure. He will become more Jem'Hadar than human. Before the Admiral could respond, a collective gasp rose from the observers. In the heart of the labyrinth, Jason had encountered a massive psychic construct, a Krell overmind. The overmind towered over Jason, its mental presence overwhelming. It bombarded him with traumatic memories, exploiting his fears about losing his humanity. Jason faltered, his mental defenses crumbling under the assault. In that moment of crisis, Jason's mind reached out desperately, not just to Queen Hera, but also to Admiral Chen. The three minds connected in an unprecedented melding of human and Jem'Hadar consciousness. The shared mental strength gave Jason the power he needed. With a surge of psychic energy, he repelled the Overmind's attack, shattering the construct into 1,000 glittering shards. As Jason emerged from the labyrinth, gasps of surprise echoed through the chamber. His appearance had changed dramatically, his skin now bearing distinct Jem'Hadar markings. His eyes, when he opened them, held a new depth of awareness. The Jem'Hadar council members murmured in approval, but Admiral Chen's face was a mask of shock. She stepped forward, her voice barely above a whisper. Jason, what have you become? Before Jason could respond, a voice cut through the chamber. This proves nothing. It was Vexkar, a Jem'Hadar warrior who had opposed Jason's integration from the beginning. He relied on the Queen and his human connections. This human is unworthy of becoming one of us. Vexkar turned to King Zoran, his posture rigid with challenge. I demand the right to face him in combat as the final trial. Let us see if he truly has the heart of a Jem'Hadar warrior. The king considered for a moment, then nodded. Very well. The final trial shall be ritual combat between Jason and Vexkar. The winner will earn a place as a high-ranking Jem'Hadar warrior and... He paused, glancing at Queen Hera. The favor of the Queen. As preparations for the final trial began, Jason found himself torn between two worlds. The human delegation huddled in urgent discussion, while the Jem'Hadar buzzed with anticipation for the coming battle. Queen Hera approached Jason, her eyes filled with a mixture of pride and concern. There's something else you need to know, she said softly. Our deepened psychic connection has triggered a rare physiological response. She hesitated, then continued. We're going to have a child, a human Jem'Hadar hybrid. Jason's mind reeled with the implications. As he struggled to process this new information, he caught sight of Admiral Chen engaged in intense conversation with King Zoran. The final trial loomed ahead, promising to determine not just his own fate, but potentially the future of human Jem'Hadar relations. With the weight of two worlds on his shoulders and his identity hanging in the balance, Jason began to prepare for the battle that would define his future. The arena awaited, and with it, a decision that would echo across the stars. Jason's mind raced as he processed Queen Hera's revelation. A child, their child, would be born of two worlds, a living bridge between humanity and the Jem'Hadar. But before he could fully comprehend the implications, the final trial loomed before him. The Nexus Arena stood as a testament to Jem'Hadar engineering, its massive crystalline structure pulsing with energy. As Jason entered, he felt the arena respond to his presence, the floor beneath his feet subtly shifting. Vexkar awaited him in the center, his eyes narrowed with nearly unleashed contempt. You may have passed the other trials, human, he spat, but true Jem'Hadar worth is proven in combat. King Zoran's voice boomed through the arena. This trial has been modified to account for Jason's unique abilities. The Nexus Arena will adapt to your powers. May the worthiest warrior prevail. As the king's words faded, Jason and Vexkar circled each other. The air crackled with tension, both combatants coiled like springs. Vexkar struck first, his fist whistling through the air. Jason ducked, feeling the rush of displaced air against his face. The fight began in earnest, a brutal dance of Jem'Hadar martial arts. Vexcar's movements were fluid, honed by years of rigorous training, but Jason's hybrid physiology gave him an edge in speed and reflexes. As they fought, the arena responded. Gravity shifted unexpectedly, forcing both fighters to adapt mid-strike. Terrain morphed beneath their feet, raising platforms and creating obstacles. In the observation chamber, Admiral Chen watched with growing concern. She turned to the human scientist beside her. "Is the device ready?" One of the scientists nodded, holding up a sleek, handheld device. "It should suppress his alien traits temporarily. But Admiral, we can't predict how it will interact with the arena's energy field." Chen's eyebrows furrowed. "We may not have a choice. Be ready to activate it on my command." Back in the arena, Jason felt his connection to Queen Hera intensify. Through their mental link, he anticipated Vexcar's moves with uncanny accuracy. He dodged a vicious uppercut, countering with a swift kick that sent Vexcar staggering. Fury blazed in Vexcar's eyes. He charged, his strikes becoming more aggressive, more reckless. "You rely on the Queen's power," he snarled. "You are unworthy." Jason blocked a flurry of blows, his arms aching from the impact. He could feel something changing within him, his body adapting to the strain of combat. New neural pathways formed, enhancing his reflexes and strength. Vexcar noticed the change too. In a desperate move, he feinted left, then drove his fist into Jason's solar plexus. The blow connected with crushing force, driving the air from Jason's lungs. As Jason fell to one knee, gasping for breath, Vexcar moved in for the kill. But something extraordinary happened. Jason's survival instinct triggered a dramatic physiological response. Energy rippled across his skin, forming a protective field around him. Vexcar's finishing blow glanced off the energy shield, his eyes widening in shock. "Impossible," he breathed. In the observation chamber, alarms blared. "His energy output is off the charts," a scientist shouted. "The transformation is accelerating beyond our predictions." Admiral Chen made her decision. "Activate the suppression device, now!" The scientist pressed a button, and a wave of energy pulsed towards Jason. But as it hit his energy field, something went wrong. The two forces collided, creating a massive surge that overwhelmed the arena's containment systems. In that moment of chaos, a new threat emerged. A group of Krell warriors, led by a scarred veteran named Zorn, burst into the arena. They had been hiding on Xylox since the failed invasion, waiting for an opportunity to strike. "Take them both down," Zorn roared, pointing at Jason and Vexcar. The Krell attacked with savage fury, their energy weapons scorching the arena floor. Jason and Vexcar, bitter rivals just moments ago, found themselves fighting side by side against a common enemy. As they battled, Jason felt his body continuing to change. His skin took on a luminescent quality, and he discovered he could project energy barriers at will. He used this new ability to shield both Jem'Hadar and human spectators from Krell attacks. Queen Hera joined the fray, her presence creating a three-way psychic link between herself, Jason, and Vexcar. The unlikely trio moved with perfect synchronization, their combined might pushing back the Krell assault. Admiral Chen watched the battle unfold, her perspective shifting. She saw Jason fighting not just for himself, but for both humans and Jem'Hadar alike. She turned to her team. "Recalibrate the device. We need to stabilize his condition, not reverse it." As the tide of battle turned against the Krell, Zorn revealed his trump card. He held up a small, ominous device, a miniaturized version of the Krell superweapon. "Surrender," he growled, "or I'll reduce this entire sector to ash." Time seemed to freeze as all eyes turned to the Krell leader. Jason felt the weight of two worlds on his shoulders. His body hummed with power, new abilities begging to be unleashed. But using them could cost him the last remnants of his humanity. As Jason stood at this crossroads, energy swirling around him, he knew his next move would shape not just his own fate, but the future of human-Jem'Hadar relations and the war against the Krell. The Nexus arena fell silent, all eyes on Jason as he prepared to make his choice. Decision. Drawing upon his newfound powers, Jason extended his arms, palms facing outward. Energy crackled across his skin, intensifying until it formed a pulsating field that expanded rapidly, engulfing the entire arena. Zorn's eyes widened in shock as the miniaturized Krell superweapon in his hand began to spark and sputter. The device emitted a high-pitched whine before abruptly falling silent, its lights fading to darkness. "No!" Zorn roared, frantically manipulating the weapon's controls to no avail. As Jason's energy field neutralized the Krell threat, the toll on his body became evident. His skin took on a luminescent quality, glowing with an otherworldly light. Intricate patterns, reminiscent of Jem'Hadar markings, etched themselves across his body in pulsing lines of energy. Queen Hera gasped, her hand flying to her temple as the psychic link between her and Jason intensified. Her own body began to change, her skin taking on a subtle sheen that mirrored Jason's transformation. In the observation chamber, Admiral Chen's voice cut through the chaos. "Now, activate the device." A scientist pressed a button on the recalibrated suppression device. A wave of energy washed over Jason, interacting with his unstable physiology. The wild fluctuations in his body began to subside, his new form settling into a stable configuration. Jason flexed his fingers, marveling at the control he now possessed over his enhanced abilities. With a thought, he projected energy barriers around the Krell infiltrators, trapping them within the arena. Vexkar, his earlier animosity forgotten, moved to Jason's side. "Impressive," he grunted, eyeing the contained Krell warriors. "Let's finish this." Together, they advanced on the trapped Krell. Jason's energy manipulation complemented Vexkar's martial prowess, creating a formidable combination. They moved in perfect synchronization, subduing the Krell forces with efficient precision. As the last Krell warrior fell, King Zoran's voice boomed through the arena. "The final trial is complete. Both Jason and Vexkar have proven their worth. They shall be granted high-ranking positions within our military structure." Murmurs of approval rippled through the Jem'Hadar spectators. Admiral Chen exchanged glances with her team, their expressions a mix of relief and apprehension at this new development. Jem'Hadar guards moved in to secure the captured Krell infiltrators. Zorn, his face contorted with rage, spat at Jason's feet as he was led away. "You've won nothing! The Krell Empire will crush both your pitiful species!" Admiral Chen stepped forward, her voice taut with urgency. "We need to interrogate them immediately. If the Krell are planning something big, we need to know." King Zoran nodded his assent. As the prisoners were escorted out, Queen Hera approached Jason, her hand resting on her abdomen. "Jason," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "Our child. I can feel it growing at an incredible rate." Before Jason could respond, a Jem'Hadar scientist hurried over, his eyes wide with excitement. "Your Majesty, the energy surge from the Nexus Arena, combined with Jason's transformed DNA, it's created something unprecedented. The hybrid child may possess immense power." Admiral Chen, overhearing the conversation, saw an opportunity. She addressed King Zoran and Queen Hera. "In light of these developments, I propose we form a joint human Jem'Hadar task force. With Jason's unique abilities and understanding of both our species, he would be the ideal leader to face whatever the Krell are planning." King Zoran considered for a moment, then nodded. "Agreed, but there is one final step Jason must take. The Confluence of Essences ritual will stabilize his hybrid physiology and unlock his full potential." Jason's brow furrowed. "What does this ritual entail?" "You must immerse yourself in the energies of the Nexus of Melding artifact," Queen Hera explained. "You'll be psychically linked to me and a human representative throughout the process." As they discussed the details of the ritual, a Jem'Hadar officer burst into the arena, his face grave. "Your Majesty, long-range sensors have detected a massive Krell fleet assembling at the edge of our star system. It appears to be a full-scale invasion force, large enough to strike both Earth and Xylox simultaneously." The news sent a shockwave through the assembled leaders. Admiral Chen's face paled. "We're out of time. Jason, are you ready for this ritual?" Jason looked around at the faces of those gathered. human and Jem'Hadar alike. The weight of two worlds rested on his shoulders. He took a deep breath, feeling the power coursing through his transformed body. "I'm ready," he said, his voice firm with tenacity. "Let's begin." As preparations for the Confluence of Essences ritual began in earnest, tension filled the air. Human and Jem'Hadar forces alike watched anxiously, knowing that the outcome of this ritual could determine the fate of both their species in the face of the impending Krell invasion. As preparations for the Confluence of Essences ritual began in earnest, Jason, Queen Hera, and Admiral Chen made their way to the chamber housing the Nexus of Melding artifact. The air crackled with anticipation as they entered the room, its walls adorned with ancient Jem'Hadar symbols pulsing with a faint blue light. Jason stepped into the specially designed containment field surrounding the artifact, his heart pounding. Queen Hera and Admiral Chen took their positions on opposite sides of the field, their faces etched with concentration. The Nexus of Melding hummed to life, enveloping Jason in a pulsating energy field. His feet left the ground as the artifact's power coursed through him, every nerve ending alight with sensation. The psychic link between Jason and Queen Hera intensified, their minds merging in a kaleidoscope of shared memories and emotions. Unexpectedly, Admiral Chen gasped as she felt herself drawn into the mental connection. Her eyes widened as human thoughts and experiences flowed into the mix, adding depth and complexity to the transformation process. Jason's body began to change before their eyes. His skin took on a shimmering, iridescent quality reminiscent of the Jem'Hadar, while still retaining distinctly human features. The intricate patterns on his body grew more pronounced, glowing with an inner light that pulsed in rhythm with the Nexus of Melding. As the ritual progressed, Queen Hera's face contorted in discomfort. She placed a hand on her abdomen, feeling the rapid changes occurring within. The unborn hybrid child was developing at an alarming rate, its growth accelerated by the energy permeating the chamber. Outside, Vexkar barked orders to a team of Jem'Hadar warriors as they worked alongside human engineers. They moved with purpose, integrating Earth technology with Jem'Hadar systems to create a hybrid defense grid capable of detecting and repelling Krell stealth technology. The ritual reached its crescendo as alarms blared throughout the Jem'Hadar capital. The Krell invasion fleet had arrived earlier than expected, its ships breaching the atmosphere and targeting key installations. Inside the chamber, the energy surge from the Nexus of Melding reached a critical point. Jason's body absorbed an unprecedented amount of power, causing the containment field to fluctuate dangerously. Sparks flew from nearby consoles as the system struggled to maintain control. Admiral Chen's military training kicked in. She reached for the recalibrated suppression device, activating it without hesitation. The device's energy interacted with the Nexus of Melding in an unexpected way, catalyzing a complete integration of Jason's human and Jem'Hadar traits. A blinding flash of light filled the chamber, forcing Queen Hera and Admiral Chen to shield their eyes. As the light faded, Jason emerged from the containment field, his transformation complete. His new form was a perfect blend of human and Jem'Hadar physiology. Iridescent patterns danced across his skin, which retained a human-like texture. His muscles were more defined, rippling with newfound strength. Jason's eyes, now a striking mix of human irises and Jem'Hadar sensory organs, darted around the room, taking in every detail with heightened clarity. Before anyone could react to Jason's transformation, Queen Hera collapsed to the floor, her body overwhelmed by the accelerated development of the hybrid child. Jem'Hadar medical staff rushed to her aid, their advanced monitoring equipment beeping urgently as they assessed her condition. "The fetus," one of the medical staff announced, his voice tinged with awe. "It's developed to a state equivalent to several months of gestation in mere minutes." The chamber shook as explosions rocked the city above. The Krell invasion force had breached the outer defenses, engaging in fierce dogfights with the combined Jem'Hadar and human fighters. Jason flexed his hands, feeling the energy coursing through his body. He turned to Admiral Chen, his voice resonating with newfound authority. "I need to join the battle. Now." Admiral Chen hesitated, her brow furrowed with concern. "Jason, your abilities are untested. We don't have time." Jason interrupted, his gaze fixed on the ceiling as another explosion shook the building. I can feel it. I can control it. This power might be our only chance. Before Admiral Chen could protest further, Queen Hera stirred, her eyes fluttering open. She reached out, grasping Jason's hand. Wait, she whispered, her voice strained. The link, it's expanded. I can feel the child. Our child. Its potential. Jason knelt beside her, his eyes widening as the psychic connection deepened. In an instant, he felt the rush of Jem'Hadar ancestral knowledge flooding his mind, intertwining with the raw, untapped potential of the hybrid offspring. Go! Queen Hera urged, her grip tightening on Jason's hand. Protect our people. Both our peoples. With a nod, Jason stood. He closed his eyes, concentrating on the energy within him. A shimmering field of energy enveloped his body, lifting him off the ground. I'll coordinate our forces from here, Admiral Chen called out as Jason moved towards the chamber's exit. Be careful out there. Jason flashed a confident smile. I'll do more than that. I'll end this invasion. With a burst of speed, Jason soared through the corridors of the Jem'Hadar Palace, emerging into the chaos of the battle-torn sky. Krell ships swarmed overhead, their energy weapons scarring the city below. Jason rocketed upwards, his protective field shimmering as he dodged incoming fire. He extended his hands, focusing his newfound abilities. Bolts of energy shot from his palms, striking a nearby Krell fighter with pinpoint accuracy. The ship spiraled out of control, crashing into an empty field outside the city limits. As Jason engaged the Krell forces, weaving through the aerial battlefield with impossible agility, he felt the combined knowledge and power of two species flowing through him. Each movement, each energy blast, was a perfect fusion of human ingenuity and Jem'Hadar biological technology. The tide of battle began to shift as Jason tore through the Krell formation, providing much-needed support to the beleaguered defenders. But even as he celebrated each small victory, Jason knew the real test was yet to come. Somewhere above, hidden among the swarm of Krell ships, lurked the true threat, the mastermind behind this invasion and the key to ending the war once and for all. As Jason accelerated towards the heart of the Krell fleet, his newly integrated powers surged through his transformed body. Energy crackled around him, forming a shimmering bubble that expanded outward with breathtaking speed. A volley of Krell energy weapons converged on a nearby squadron of human and Jem'Hadar fighters. Jason's shield enveloped the Allied ships just in time, the incoming fire dissipating harmlessly against the barrier. The pilots' voices crackled over the comm system, a mix of relief and awe. Did you see that? A human pilot exclaimed. By the ancestors, a Jem'Hadar warrior breathed. Such power. Jason's voice cut through the chatter. Form up on me. We're taking the fight to them. As the combined squadron fell into formation behind Jason, he unleashed a barrage of energy beams from his hands. The attack struck with pinpoint accuracy, disabling the propulsion systems of multiple Krell ships. The stricken vessels began to plummet towards Xylox's surface, trailing smoke and debris. Jason's mind raced, calculating trajectories and potential impact zones. He reached out with his powers, enveloping the falling ships in fields of energy. With careful manipulation, he guided them away from populated areas, steering them towards empty fields and uninhabited mountain ranges. On the ground, Vexkar led a mixed force of Jem'Hadar and human soldiers in defense of a critical power distribution hub. The newly integrated hybrid defense grid hummed to life, its sensors detecting a wave of incoming Krell ground troops. Humans concentrate fire on their left flank, Vexkar ordered, his voice carrying over the din of battle. Jem'Hadar warriors, with me, will engage their center. The human soldiers, already adapting to Jem'Hadar tactics, executed a series of coordinated maneuvers. Their weapons fire interlocked with the Jem'Hadar's more aggressive close-quarters assault, creating a devastating crossfire that tore through the Krell ranks. In the Jem'Hadar command center, Admiral Chen's face was illuminated by the glow of multiple holographic displays. She barked orders to both human and Jem'Hadar officers, coordinating the defense of Xylox with practiced efficiency. Suddenly, a priority transmission from Earth cut through the tactical chatter. Chen's eyes widened as she absorbed the information. Confirmed Krell attack on Earth, she announced to the command staff. Multiple targets, including major cities and military installations. She turned to a nearby communications officer. Get me a direct link to Earth Defense Command. We need to coordinate our response immediately. As Chen divided her attention between the two fronts, Jason soared through the chaotic skies above Xylox. His psychic link with Queen Hera pulsed with increasing intensity, bringing with it flashes of tactical insight that seemed to originate from their unborn child. Jason's voice crackled over the command channel. Admiral Chen, I'm seeing weaknesses in the Krell formation. There's a gap in their defensive screen at coordinates 047 Mark 223. If we concentrate our forces there, we can split their fleet. Chen quickly relayed the information to the fleet commanders. Within moments, a strike force of human and Jem'Hadar ships converged on the designated coordinates, punching through the Krell lines and sowing chaos in their ranks. The Krell, recognizing the threat posed by Jason, refocused their attacks. A barrage of advanced energy weapons converged on his position, each blast powerful enough to vaporize a small ship. Jason's energy shield flared brightly as it absorbed the impacts, but the strain was evident on his face. Sweat beaded on Jason's brow as he pushed his hybrid physiology to its limits. He gritted his teeth, maintaining the shield while continuing to strike back at the Krell ships. The effort was immense, but he knew he had to hold out, to give the Allied forces time to press their advantage. Suddenly, a group of Krell ships broke from their main formation. For a moment, Jason thought they were attempting a new attack vector. Then, to his astonishment, they opened fire on their own fleet. Jason reached out with his psychic abilities, probing the minds aboard the rogue ships. He encountered a consciousness different from the hostile Krell he had faced before. A mind filled with doubt, regret, and a desperate hope for peace. This is Commander Zara of the Krell Reformation Movement, a gravelly voice transmitted on an open channel. We seek asylum and offer our aid against the invasion force. Jason quickly relayed the information to Admiral Chen. After a moment of stunned silence, Chen's voice came through, taut with cautious optimism. Acknowledge Commander Zara, coordinate with our forces and target the Krell command ships. With Zarath's rebel faction providing crucial intelligence, Jason coordinated a series of precision strikes against the heart of the Krell fleet. Jem'Hadar boarding parties, supported by human special forces, launched daring assaults on the enemy command ships, throwing their chain of command into disarray. As the tide of battle began to turn, alarms blared in the Jem'Hadar medical bay. Queen Hera's body convulsed, her face contorted in pain as contractions racked her body. The medical team scrambled to prepare for the impending birth, their equipment barely able to keep up with the hybrid child's unprecedented development. Jason felt the psychic link pulse with an intensity that nearly overwhelmed him. He sensed Queen Hera's pain, the child's eagerness to enter the world, and the potential power that lay coiled within its developing form. In that moment, he faced an impossible choice: continue leading the defense against the Krell, or return to the palace for the birth of his child. The skies above Xylox were still filled with battling ships, explosions blooming like deadly flowers against the backdrop of space. The Krell invasion force, though faltering, remained a significant threat, yet the pull of the psychic link was undeniable, filled with a sense of urgency and destiny. Jason hovered in midair, torn between duty and instinct. The choice he made now would shape not only the outcome of this battle, but the future of human-Jem'Hadar relations and the balance of power in the galaxy. With a deep breath, he made his decision and accelerated through the war-torn sky, leaving a trail of shimmering energy in his wake. Wake! Jason's heart raced as he made his decision. With a burst of energy, he changed course, streaking back toward the Jem'Hadar palace. The battle raged around him, but he had to trust in the combined forces to hold the line. Zarath, Vexkar, he called through the comlink, his voice resolute. I'm entrusting you with command of our aerial defenses. Coordinate with Admiral Chen and push the Krell back. Acknowledgements crackled through the channel as Jason accelerated, his new powers propelling him at speeds that left a trail of shimmering energy in his wake. The cityscape blurred beneath him as he zeroed in on the palace, the psychic link with Queen Hera growing stronger with each passing second. Jason landed with a thunderous impact in the palace courtyard, startling a group of Jem'Hadar guards. Without breaking stride, he sprinted through the corridors, following the pull of the psychic connection. The closer he got to the medical bay, the more intense the link became, filling his mind with a cacophony of sensations and emotions. As he burst through the doors of the medical bay, the scene before him took his breath away. Queen Hera lay on a biobed, her face contorted in pain as contractions racked her body. A team of Jem'Hadar and human medical experts worked feverishly around her, their movements a blur of efficiency. "Jason," Hera gasped, reaching out for him. "You came!" He rushed to her side, grasping her hand. The moment their skin made contact, the psychic link exploded into vivid clarity. Jason felt every ounce of Hera's pain, her perseverance, and the raw power building within her. "I'm here," he said, his voice steady despite the maelstrom of emotions coursing through him. "We're in this together." As another contraction hit, Jason's energy field pulsed in sync with Hera's body. The medical team stepped back, their eyes wide with awe as the couple was enveloped in a cocoon of shimmering light. "The child is coming," one of the Jem'Hadar medics announced, his voice tinged with a mix of excitement and trepidation. Jason braced himself, feeling the moment approach through their shared link. Hera's grip on his hand tightened, her strength beyond what any human could endure. With a final, powerful push, their child entered the world. A blinding flash of energy erupted from the newborn, momentarily overwhelming Jason's senses. When his vision cleared, he saw a tiny figure cradled in the arms of a human doctor. The child's skin shimmered with an iridescent glow, and as she opened her eyes, Jason gasped. They were unlike anything he had ever seen. A swirling mix of human irises and Jem'Hadar sensory organs that seemed to shift and change as he watched. "She's beautiful," Hera whispered, her voice filled with wonder. Jason nodded, unable to form words as he stared at their daughter. Through their link, he felt a new presence, a mind of incredible complexity and power, already processing the world around her at an astonishing rate. "Zara," Jason said suddenly, the name coming to him as if whispered by some cosmic force. "Her name is Zara." Hera smiled weakly, nodding her agreement. As Jason took Zara into his arms, a jolt of energy passed between them. In that instant, his mind was flooded with knowledge. Glimpses of advanced technology, strategies for manipulating energy fields, and insights into the very fabric of the universe. Before Jason could process this influx of information, Zara's body began to glow. A pulsating energy field, similar to his own but far more intense, radiated outward from her tiny form. It expanded rapidly, engulfing the medical bay in seconds. Alarms blared as the energy field interfaced with the palace's systems. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing real-time upgrades to the building's defenses and communication networks. The field continued to grow, pushing beyond the confines of the palace and into the war-torn skies above. Admiral Chen's voice crackled through the newly enhanced comm system. "Jason, what's happening? Our ships, they're changing." Jason watched in amazement as the energy field enveloped the Allied forces. Fighter craft suddenly moved with impossible agility, their weapons firing beams of energy that cut through Krell shields like paper. The hybrid defense grid on the ground pulsed with renewed power, projecting an impenetrable barrier around key areas of Xylox. "It's Zara," Jason replied, his voice filled with awe. "She's enhancing everything she touches." As the newly empowered human and Jem'Hadar forces turned the tide of battle, Jason felt a tug on his consciousness. Through his link with Zara, he sensed her awareness expanding, reaching out beyond Xylox. With a start, he realized she had made contact with Earth's defenses, instantly upgrading them to match those on Xylox. The Krell invasion force, faced with this unexpected turn of events, began to falter. Their carefully laid plans crumbled in the face of technology they couldn't comprehend or counter. Jason watched through the palace's enhanced sensor feeds as the enemy fleet started to break formation, individual ships turning to flee. A tremor ran through the palace as Zara's energy field began to recede. The child in Jason's arms yawned, her eyes drifting closed as the glow around her body dimmed. As the immediate danger passed, Jason found himself overwhelmed by the implications of what had just occurred. King Zorn's voice came through the comm system, filled with a mix of awe and concern. Jason, Queen Hera, we must discuss the future. Your child has changed everything. Jason looked down at Zara, then at Hera, who gazed back at him with a mixture of love and apprehension. He knew that the real challenges were just beginning. The galaxy had been irrevocably altered, and they were at the center of it all. As if sensing his thoughts, Zara stirred in his arms. Her eyes opened, filled with an intelligence far beyond her few minutes of life. Through their link, Jason felt a surge of emotions: curiosity, love, and a deep-seated desire to explore the vast potential that lay before her. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: nothing would ever be the same again. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: nothing would ever be the same. As the glow from Zara's energy field faded, Jason and Hera exchanged a look of profound understanding. Their child had just altered the course of galactic history. In the days that followed, the palace buzzed with activity. Medical teams hovered around Hera and Zara, monitoring their vital signs and collecting data on the unprecedented hybrid physiology. Jason found himself constantly pulled between his roles as new father, diplomat, and military leader. On the third day after Zara's birth, King Zorn summoned Jason to the palace's newly upgraded command center. Holographic displays flickered with real-time updates from across the Jem'Hadar system and beyond. "The Krell have retreated beyond our sensor range," Zorn reported, his voice a mix of relief and concern. "But we face a new challenge. The humans are unsettled by recent events." Jason nodded, understanding the delicate situation. "They're grateful for the enhanced defenses, but wary of such rapid change. We need to address their concerns head-on." As if on cue, a communication request flashed on the main screen. Admiral Chen's face appeared, his expression grave. "Jason, we need to talk. I'm en route to Xylox with a delegation. This situation requires immediate attention." Within hours, the palace's newly constructed conference center was filled with a mix of human and Jem'Hadar leaders. The atmosphere was tense as Jason took his place at the head of the table, flanked by King Zoran and Admiral Chen. Chen spoke first, his voice measured but firm. "While we appreciate the advancements brought by recent events, we must consider the long-term implications. Our scientists are reporting technological leaps that defy explanation." Murmurs rippled through the assembled leaders. Jason felt the weight of their gazes upon him, a mix of awe and apprehension. He took a deep breath, preparing to address the gathering, when a commotion at the door interrupted him. Vexkar, the traditionalist Jem'Hadar commander, strode into the room. His face was a mask of terrifying anger. "We cannot ignore the threat to our way of life," he declared, his voice echoing in the suddenly silent chamber. "Our warrior culture is at risk of being diluted, our very essence changed by this hybrid influence." The room erupted into heated debate. Human scientists argued for caution and further study, while Jem'Hadar warriors demanded assurances that their species' strength would not be compromised. Through it all, Jason remained silent, observing the swirling currents of fear and hope. Finally, he stood, his presence commanding immediate attention. "We stand at a crossroads, Harrington," Jason began, his voice calm but authoritative. "The birth of my daughter has opened doors we never knew existed, but we must walk through them together, as allies and equals." He turned to address both sides of the room. "I propose a joint human Jem'Hadar research initiative. We'll study these advancements, harness them responsibly, and ensure that both our cultures not only survive, but thrive in this new era." The proposal was met with cautious nods from both factions. As the leaders began to discuss the details, Jason felt a sudden pulse through his psychic link. He excused himself quickly, rushing to the medical wing where Hera and Zara were resting. He found Hera sitting up in bed, her eyes wide with wonder. "Jason," she whispered as he entered, "something's happening." Before his eyes, Hera's hand began to shimmer with a faint energy field. She reached out, and a small object on the bedside table lifted into the air, suspended by an invisible force. "It's not just Zara," Hera said, her voice a mix of excitement and trepidation. "I'm changing too." Their moment of shared amazement was cut short by a blaring alarm. The palace's advanced sensor network had detected something massive approaching the system at impossible speeds. Jason's communicator crackled to life with King Zoran's urgent voice. "Jason, we need you in the command center immediately. We may be facing a threat greater than the Krell." With a last look at Hera and Zara, Jason sprinted toward the command center. The summit participants were already gathered around the main display, faces pale as they watched the approaching anomaly. "It's not Krell," Admiral Chen reported, his voice tense. "In fact, it doesn't match any known species or technology." King Zoran turned to Jason, his expression grim. "We need a united response. Will you lead our combined forces against this new threat?" Jason felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He thought of Hera, of Zara, of the fragile alliance that hung in the balance. With a nod, he accepted the mantle of leadership. "Mobilize the fleet," he ordered, his voice ringing with authority. "And Vexkar," he added, turning to the Jem'Hadar commander, "I want you as my second in command. We'll need your tactical expertise." Vexkar's eyes widened in surprise, but he nodded solemnly, setting aside his earlier reservations. As the combined human Jem'Hadar fleet assembled at the edge of the system, Jason prepared to board the flagship. He shared a final bittersweet moment with Hera and Zara, their psychic link humming with unspoken emotions. "I'll come back," he promised, cradling Zara one last time before handing her back to Hera. The flagship's engines roared to life as Jason took his place on the bridge. Beside him, Vexkar stood at attention, ready to face whatever challenge awaited them. As the fleet moved into position, the unknown object suddenly accelerated, closing the vast distance in a matter of hours. Jason's mind raced, formulating strategies and contingencies. "All ships, battle stations," he commanded, his voice steady despite the tension. "Prepare for first contact, or combat." The massive object came to an abrupt halt just beyond the system's outer planets. An eerie silence fell over the bridge as everyone held their breath, waiting for the next move in this high-stakes cosmic chess game. Jason's hands gripped the command console, his enhanced senses on high alert. Whatever emerged from that object would shape the future of not just two species, but potentially the entire galaxy, and he was determined to face it head-on. Head-on. As Jason steeled himself for the encounter, a blinding flash erupted from the object, enveloping the fleet in a sea of white light. "We've lost all communications," an officer shouted, frantically working at his console. Jason's enhanced senses picked up a faint energy signature, moving rapidly towards them. "Incoming vessel, port side," he warned, his voice cutting through the chaos on the bridge. Before anyone could react, the smaller craft had already docked with their ship, bypassing every security measure, as if they didn't exist. The airlock cycled open, revealing a group of humanoid beings unlike any Jason had ever encountered. At their head stood a tall, elegant female with skin that seemed to glow from within. Her eyes, deep pools of swirling galaxies, locked onto Jason's. As she stepped forward, the very air around her seemed to ripple with energy. "I am Lyra," she announced, her voice carrying a melodic quality that resonated through Jason's very being. "Emissary of the Celestials. We have much to discuss, Jason Chen." Vexkar bristled, his hand instinctively moving to his weapon. "How do you know his name? What is the meaning of this intrusion?" Lyra's gaze shifted to the Jem'Hadar commander, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "We have been watching, Vexkar, for longer than you can imagine. The birth of Zara has set in motion events of galactic significance." Jason felt a chill run down his spine at the mention of his daughter's name. "What do you want with Zara?" "Not just Zara," Lyra replied, her eyes once again meeting Jason's. "You, Queen Hera, and your child represent a convergence we have long awaited. We request a meeting on Xylox to discuss the role you will play in shaping the future of this galaxy." Jason's mind raced, weighing the potential risks against the opportunity for knowledge and understanding. He glanced at Vexkar, noting the Jem'Hadar's tense posture and narrowed eyes. "I'll agree to this meeting," Jason said finally, "but the fleet remains on high alert. Vexcar, I want you to maintain our defensive position here." The Jem'Hadar commander nodded reluctantly. "Be cautious, Jason. We know nothing of these beings or their true intentions." Within minutes, Jason found himself aboard a celestial transport, hurtling towards Xylox at impossible speeds. The journey that should have taken hours passed in mere moments, and soon they were descending towards the Jem'Hadar palace. As they touched down, Jason saw Hera waiting for them, cradling Zara in her arms. His breath caught in his throat as he realized his daughter, barely days old, now appeared to have the physical development of a toddler. Zara's eyes, a swirling mix of human and Jem'Hadar features, locked onto Lyra as they approached. The child reached out, her tiny hand brushing against the Celestial's luminescent skin. A visible spark of energy passed between them, causing both to gasp in unison. "Extraordinary," Lyra whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. "She is even more than we hoped." Before Jason could question her further, Lyra launched into an explanation that left him reeling. The Celestials, she revealed, were an ancient race that had been guiding the evolution of species across the galaxy for eons. Their goal, to create a being capable of bridging the gap between physical and energy-based life forms. The unique combination of human adaptability and Jem'Hadar biological technology, catalyzed by the circumstances of Zara's birth, has created a being with unparalleled potential, Lyra explained. But that potential must be nurtured, stabilized, and enhanced. She proposed a series of trials for Jason, Hera, and Zara to undergo together. These tests, Lyra claimed, would not only help Zara control her burgeoning abilities, but would also elevate Jason and Hera's hybrid traits. As Jason considered the implications of Lyra's words, alarms blared throughout the palace. King Zoran's voice crackled over the comm system, tense and urgent. "Jason, we have multiple Krell ships appearing in system. They've somehow bypassed our enhanced defenses." The implications hit Jason like a physical blow. The Krell must have reverse-engineered technology from the energy field generated during Zara's birth, developing new capabilities to counter their recent defeat. Jason found himself torn between two impossible choices. He could commit to the celestial trials, potentially gaining the power to permanently neutralize the Krell threat, or he could return to lead the fleet, defending Xylox and Earth from immediate danger. As he grappled with the decision, Hera suddenly stiffened, her eyes going wide. "Jason," she gasped, her voice strained, "I'm seeing everything, all possible futures, branching out from this moment." Before Jason could reach her, Hera collapsed. Zara, sensing her mother's distress, instinctively reached out with her powers. A surge of energy pulsed from the child, enveloping Hera, Jason, and Lyra in a cocoon of shimmering light. In that instant, their minds connected. Jason found himself adrift in a sea of shared consciousness, bombarded by fragments of memories and knowledge from the others. He glimpsed the vast history of the Celestials, the intricate web of galactic politics, and the myriad possible futures stemming from their current crossroads. As quickly as it began, the psychic event subsided. Jason blinked, his pupils dilating from the influx of information. He looked at Hera, who was slowly regaining her composure, then at Zara, whose eyes now held a depth of understanding far beyond her apparent years. Lyra, for her part, seemed shaken by the experience. "This was unexpected," she admitted, a note of awe in her voice. "Your daughter's abilities are developing faster than we anticipated." The moment of shared insight had given Jason a clearer picture of the stakes involved, but it had also raised new questions about the Celestials' true motives. As the distant sound of battle reached them from orbit, he knew he had to make a decision quickly. The fate of two species, and possibly the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. With the Krell fleet advancing and the promise of unimaginable power dangling before him, Jason took a deep breath, prepared to make the choice that would shape the course of history. With clarity born from the shared psychic experience, Jason made his decision. "We need to undergo the trials," he announced, his voice firm. "It's our best chance for long-term survival against the Krell." Hera nodded, her eyes reflecting the same dedication. I agree. We can't keep fighting this war with the same tactics. Jason turned to Lyra. We'll do it, but I need to ensure our people are protected in the meantime. He activated his communicator. Vexcar, I'm entrusting you with command of the Joint Fleet. Defend the system at all costs. Understood, came the Jem'Hadar's gruff reply. We'll hold the line. With that settled, Lyra led them deeper into the palace. As they walked, Jason noticed subtle changes in the architecture. Ancient symbols and technologies seamlessly integrated into the Jem'Hadar design. This way, Lyra guided them to a blank wall. At her touch, it shimmered and dissolved, revealing a hidden chamber. An ancient, celestial outpost, waiting to be awakened. As they entered, the chamber hummed to life. Holographic displays flickered into existence, outlining 3 distinct trials they would face. The first trial will focus on physical transformation, Lyra explained, gesturing to a pool of softly glowing liquid. Jason, Hera, you'll need to submerge yourselves. Zara will be placed in this. She indicated a small egg-shaped pod. Jason and Hera exchanged a look before stepping into the pool. The liquid was warm, almost alive against their skin. As they submerged, Jason felt a tingling sensation spread throughout his body. Beside him, Hera gasped, her eyes wide with wonder. The transformation was both painful and exhilarating. Jason felt his muscles tear and reform, his bones shifting and strengthening. Energy crackled across his skin, and he realized he could manipulate it, forming small force fields at will. Hera's experience was different but equally intense. Her mind expanded, touching the thoughts of everyone in the chamber with crystal clarity. She could sense the intricate web of connections between them, the flow of energy and information. When they emerged from the pool, both felt reborn. Jason flexed his hands, watching as energy danced between his fingers. Hera's eyes glowed with newfound power, her thoughts reaching out to caress his mind. Their attention turned to Zara's pod, which was pulsing with energy. As it opened, they gasped. Their daughter, who had been an infant mere hours ago, now stood before them as a young child. Her eyes, wise beyond her years, took in her parents' new forms. Mama, Papa, she said, her voice clear and strong. I understand now. The second trial transformed the chamber into a vast training ground. Holographic enemies appeared, each more challenging than the last. Jason created energy shields and weapons, while Hera coordinated their efforts telepathically. Zara, to their amazement, amplified their abilities, allowing them to achieve feats they never thought possible. As they progressed, they discovered a new technique. By combining their powers, they could create a massive force field capable of enveloping entire planets. The effort left them drained, but the potential for defense against large-scale Krell attacks was clear. The final trial was the most difficult. The chamber shifted again, this time creating personalized illusions for each of them. Jason found himself on Earth, surrounded by humans who regarded him with fear and disgust. He wasn't one of them anymore. Had he sacrificed his humanity? Hera faced a crumbling Jem'Hadar empire, her people looking to her for leadership she felt unworthy to provide. The weight of responsibility threatened to crush her. Zara, despite her rapid growth, struggled with the enormity of her role. In her illusion, she stood alone on a barren planet, the fate of the galactic realm resting on her small shoulders. Through their strengthened psychic link, they reached out to each other. Jason reminded Hera of her strength. Hera soothed Zara's fears, and Zara showed Jason that his humanity lay in his choices, not his physical form. Together, they overcame their individual trials. As the illusions faded, Lyra approached them, holding a small crystalline sphere. This artifact will amplify your combined powers, she explained. With it, you could create a galaxy-wide defense network against the Krell. But be warned, each use will drain your life force. Before they could fully process this information, alarms blared through the chamber. They emerged to find that days had passed in the outside world. Vexcar's voice crackled over the comms, strained and urgent. Jason, we're being overrun. The Krell have pushed deep into our system, and Earth is under heavy assault. They've deployed a new weapon capable of destabilizing planetary cores. We need your help. As if to underscore the dire situation, long-range sensors detected a new wave of Krell ships entering the system. At their center was a massive vessel, dwarfing anything they had encountered before. Jason looked at Hera and Zara, the celestial artifact glowing between them. They had the power to potentially end the Krell threat once and for all. But at what cost? The alternative was to focus on defending Earth and Xylox, a more manageable task, but one that left countless other worlds vulnerable. Time was running out. The fate of 2 species, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. Jason took a deep breath, prepared to make a decision that would shape the course of the war. Galaxy. His eyes met Hera's, then flicked to Zara's. In that shared glance, a decision crystallized. "We'll create a localized defense network," Jason announced, his voice firm. "Protect Xylox and Earth. It's our best chance to save both worlds without depleting ourselves entirely." Hera nodded, her newly enhanced mind already reaching out to coordinate their efforts. "Agreed. We can't risk everything on a galaxy-wide effort. Not yet." Zara, her small form belying the power within, stepped forward. "I'm ready." Jason activated his comms. "Vexcar, we're initiating a planetary defense system. Hold the line as long as you can." "Understood," came the gruff reply. "We'll buy you the time you need." The trio moved to the center of the chamber, the celestial artifact pulsing with blue light between them. Jason placed his hands on the crystalline sphere, feeling energy course through his body. Hera's mind brushed against his, establishing a telepathic link that connected all 3 of them. Zara closed her eyes, her body glowing as she channeled her power into the artifact. The chamber filled with a brilliant light as the defense network took shape. In space, a shimmering barrier began to form around Xylox. It expanded rapidly, a translucent, iridescent shell encompassing the planet. Moments later, a similar barrier materialized around Earth, visible even from this distant star system. The strain was immediate. Jason felt his life force draining into the artifact, powering the massive energy fields. Beside him, Hera's face was etched with concentration, her enhanced telepathic abilities coordinating their efforts and maintaining the complex network of energy. Zara stood between them, her small body glowing with an intensity that was almost painful to look at. She acted as an amplifier, magnifying their combined powers to levels they couldn't have achieved alone. Through their mental link, Jason sensed the approach of the Krell fleet. The massive vessel they had detected earlier revealed itself to be a planet-sized battle station, dwarfing anything they had encountered before. "The Hive," Hera whispered, the name echoing through their shared consciousness. As they watched, unable to divert their focus from maintaining the defense network, the Hive launched waves of fighters towards both Xylox and Earth. The smaller Krell ships impacted the energy barrier, their weapons flaring uselessly against the shimmering shield. In orbit around Xylox, Vexcar led the joint human gem-hotter fleet in a desperate defense. Enhanced ships engaged the Krell fighters, energy weapons flashing in the void of space. Despite their superior technology, the sheer number of Krell vessels began to overwhelm the defenders. Jason gritted his teeth, feeling the constant impacts against the barrier he was helping to maintain. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he poured more of his life force into the celestial artifact. Hera's mind brushed his, her thoughts tinged with concern. "We can't maintain this indefinitely," she projected. "The strain is too great." Through their link, Jason sensed similar reports from Earth. Admiral Chen's voice crackled over the comms, reporting that the planetary defenses were holding, but the constant bombardment was creating stress points in the barrier. As the battle raged on, Jason felt himself aging. His muscles ached and his vision blurred. Beside him, Hera's once vibrant skin had begun to dull, lines appearing on her face that hadn't been there before. Most concerning was Zara. The child's form flickered, becoming translucent at times as she poured more and more of herself into amplifying the defense network. Her eyes, when they opened, shone with a power and understanding that seemed to encompass the universe itself. "We need a new strategy," Jason said, his voice rough with exertion. "We can't win this purely on the defensive." Hera nodded, her mind already racing through possibilities. "The Hive," she said. If we could disable it, a surgical strike, Jason agreed. Infiltrate and take it down from the inside. Zara's voice, sounding older and wiser than her apparent years, cut through their discussion. I can get us there, she said, but I can't maintain this barrier if I do. Jason looked at Hera, a silent communication passing between them. I'll go, he said. You stay here. Maintain the defense network as long as you can. Hera's eyes widened. It's too dangerous. You can't go alone. He won't be, Zara said, her form solidifying as she focused her energy. I'm going with him. Before Hera could protest further, Jason activated his comms. Vexcar, we need a diversion. Draw as many Krell ships away from the hive as you can. We're going to try to take it out from the inside. Understood, Vexcar replied, a note of steadfast perseverance in his voice. May your battle be glorious. Jason turned to Hera, cupping her face in his hands. Keep the link open. We'll need your guidance. Hera nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. Be careful, she whispered, her mind caressing his one last time before he stepped away. Jason and Zara moved to the edge of the chamber, their bodies beginning to glow as they focused their energy. A small, concentrated bubble formed around them, both shield and propulsion. With a final look at Hera, they launched themselves into space, streaking towards the massive Krell hive. Around them, the battle raged, Vexcar's ships engaging in a suicidal charge to draw attention away from their approach. As they neared the hive's outer hull, Jason felt Hera's mind guiding them, her enhanced perception identifying a vulnerable point in the station's defenses. They angled towards it, the energy bubble protecting them from detection. Jason looked down at Zara, the child's face set in unbreakable spirit. Together they prepared to breach the hive's outer hull, knowing that the fate of two species rested on their success. The hive loomed before them, a planet-sized monstrosity jam packed with weapons. As they approached their entry point, Jason took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. The real battle was about to begin. As they neared their target, a blinding flash erupted from the hive's surface, an energy pulse invisible until it collided with their protective bubble, shattered their defenses. No! Jason cried out as he felt Zara's presence torn away from him. The force of the impact sent them spinning in opposite directions, tumbling towards different sections of the massive station. Gritting his teeth, Jason focused his power. A shimmering field of energy coalesced around him, slowing his descent. He impacted against the hive's hull with a bone-jarring thud, but his hastily erected shield absorbed the worst of it. Blinking away the disorientation, Jason found himself next to a small maintenance hatch. It was barely large enough for him to squeeze through, but it offered a way in. He glanced around, searching for any sign of Zara, but saw nothing but the vast metallic expanse of the hive. Zara? He called out through their mental link. Silence answered him. With a heavy heart, Jason made a decision. He had to press on, trusting that Zara's unique abilities would keep her safe. He began working on the hatch, using his energy manipulation to bypass its locking mechanism. Meanwhile, Zara's form flickered and phased, her hybrid physiology allowing her to pass through the hive's hull like it was mist. She rematerialized inside a cavernous chamber, her eyes widening at the sight before her. Row upon row of stasis pods stretched as far as she could see, each containing a dormant Krell warrior. An alarm blared, harsh and insistent. The pods nearest to Zara began to activate, their occupants stirring to life. Panic flared in her chest, but she pushed it down, calling upon her newly awakened powers. Back on Xylox, Hera strained to maintain the planetary defense network. Sweat beaded on her brow, and her once smooth skin began to wrinkle and sag. The effort of powering the massive energy field, while attempting to re-establish contact with Jason and Zara, was taking a terrible toll. Vexcar approached her, concern etched on his craggy features. "My queen, you cannot continue like this," he said, his gruff voice tinged with worry. Hera shook her head, her eyes never leaving the shimmering barrier above. "I must," she whispered. "They need more time." The Jem'Hadar commander turned to a nearby group of scientists. "Find a way to stabilize her life force," he ordered. "Now!" Inside the hive, Jason crawled through narrow maintenance tunnels, guided by the knowledge he'd gleaned from the incapacitated Krell drones. He paused at an intersection, sensing movement ahead. A group of Krell workers rounded the corner, their insectoid features betraying no emotion as they went about their tasks. Jason acted swiftly. He reached out with his mind, tapping into the Krell's linked consciousness. Information flooded his brain. Schematics, security protocols, the location of the central control room. The drones collapsed, overwhelmed by the mental intrusion. Zara faced the awakening Krell warriors, her small form dwarfed by their towering armored bodies. As the first warrior lunged at her, Zara's hands shot out. A burst of energy erupted from her palms, forming a shimmering barrier between her and her attackers. The Krell recoiled, momentarily stunned. Zara didn't waste the opportunity. She focused her will, shaping the energy into razor-sharp projectiles. They sliced through the air, incapacitating the nearest warriors. But more were awakening. Dozens, then hundreds of stasis pods hissed open, disgorging their lethal contents. Zara retreated, her mind racing. She needed to find Jason, to complete their mission before they were overwhelmed. On Earth, Admiral Chen received an urgent transmission. "Sir," a breathless scientist appeared on the screen. "We've done it. The prototype is ready." Chen's eyes widened. "The shield breaker? It works?" The scientist nodded vigorously. "Initial tests are promising. We're ready for field deployment." "Get it to our ships immediately," Chen ordered. "This could turn the tide." Jason moved deeper into the hive, his enhanced senses alert for any threat. He rounded a corner and froze. Before him stretched a vast laboratory, filled with tanks of bubbling liquid. Inside each tank floated a grotesque form, part Krell, part human, part Jem'Hadar. "My God," Jason whispered, horror and revulsion washing over him. The Krell weren't just invaders. They were trying to remake life itself in their image. A faint touch brushed against his mind. "Jason?" Hera's voice, weak but unmistakable. "I'm here," he responded, relief flooding through him. "Hera, you won't believe what I found." As Jason relayed his discovery, Zara continued her desperate flight through the hive's corridors. With each step, more Krell knowledge seeped into her hybrid mind. Schematics, weapon systems, even fragments of their history and culture, all became part of her. A plan began to form in her mind. She reached out, interfacing with the hive's secondary systems. Subtle changes rippled through the station's environment. Oxygen levels increased, gravity shifted, temperature rose. For the Krell, it was barely noticeable. For Jason and any potential human or Jem'Hadar allies, it could mean the difference between life and death. Outside, Vexkar watched in dismay as another of his ships erupted in a ball of fire. The diversionary attack was failing. The Krell counterattack was relentless, methodical in its destruction. "Pull back," he ordered, his voice heavy. "Regroup at the defense perimeter. We must protect the planet at all costs." As the battered fleet retreated, Jason approached the central control room. Heavy blast doors barred his way, guarded by a phalanx of elite Krell warriors. Their armor gleamed dully in the harsh light, their weapons primed and ready. Jason flexed his hands, energy crackling between his fingers. He had come too far to be stopped now. Taking a deep breath, he prepared to launch his assault. Unbeknownst to him, Zara was mere moments away, racing through the hive's twisting corridors with newfound purpose. Their reunion seemed imminent, but time was running out. Deep within the hive's core, the supreme commander of the Krell forces received reports of the intruders. Its compound eyes narrowed, mandibles clicking in agitation. With a series of sharp gestures, it initiated the hive's final defense protocol. Warning klaxons blared throughout the station. A countdown appeared on every screen, its ominous numbers ticking away the seconds until self-destruct. The fate of two worlds now hung in the balance, with Jason and Zara poised to make their final, desperate stand against the heart of the Krell war machine. Jason took a deep breath, energy crackling between his fingers as he prepared to launch his assault on the control room. But before he could act, a figure emerged from the shadows, hands raised in a gesture of peace. "Wait!" The voice was distinctly female, with a clicking undertone that marked it as Krell. I mean you no harm, human. Jason froze, his mind racing. The Krell before him was smaller than the warriors, her exoskeleton a pale blue instead of the typical dark hues. Her compound eyes fixed on him, mandibles twitching nervously. I am Zelna, she said, her voice low and urgent. I am part of a secret faction within the Krell. We oppose this war and seek peaceful coexistence. I can help you disable the self-destruct sequence and gain control of the hive. Jason's eyes narrowed, his telepathic abilities probing Zelna's mind. Images flashed through his consciousness. Clandestine meetings, arguments with Krell leadership, plans for sabotage. He sensed no deception, only a desperate hope for peace. Why should I trust you? Jason asked, not lowering his guard. Zelna's antennae drooped. Because without my help, you will fail. And if you fail, billions will die. Krell, human, and Jem'Hadar alike. Jason hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Lead the way. Zelna chittered in relief, then gestured to a hidden panel in the wall. As it slid open, revealing a narrow passage, Jason sent a quick telepathic message to Hera, updating her on the situation. As they crawled through the cramped tunnel, bypassing the guards outside the control room, Jason felt a faint touch against his mind. Zara was alive, and she was getting closer. Meanwhile, Zara herself was navigating the twisting corridors of the hive, her hybrid mind processing the flood of Krell knowledge she'd absorbed. She rounded a corner and found herself in a vast chamber filled with strange, pulsing machinery. Her eyes widened as she realized what she was seeing. Terraforming technology, she whispered, her voice filled with awe. Without hesitation, Zara approached the nearest console, placing her hands on its surface. Her eyes glowed as she interfaced with the system, downloading schematics and operational data directly into her mind. As the information poured in, Zara's form flickered and solidified, her physical body struggling to contain the vast amount of knowledge. But she pushed through, knowing that this technology could be the key to ending the war and repairing the damage it had caused. Back on Xylox, Queen Hera's condition was deteriorating rapidly. Her once vibrant skin had turned ashen, her body trembling with the effort of maintaining the planetary defense network. Vexkar watched her with growing alarm. My queen, he said, his gruff voice softening with concern. You cannot continue like this. You will die. Hera's eyes, though clouded with pain, remained determined. I must. Hold on, she gasped. For Jason. For Zara. Vexkar's craggy features set in a grim expression. He turned to a group of Jem'Hadar warriors standing nearby. Volunteers, he barked. Step forward. 5 warriors immediately moved to the front, standing at attention. Vexkar nodded. You will undergo an experimental procedure to link your life forces with Queen Hera's. It is dangerous and may be fatal. Do you accept? Without hesitation, all 5 warriors responded in unison. Our lives for the Queen. As the Jem'Hadar were rushed to a nearby medical bay, the space battle around the hive took a dramatic turn. Admiral Chen's voice crackled over the comms, his tone urgent but tinged with excitement. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Deploy shield destabilizers now. I repeat, deploy shield destabilizers. The human fleet unleashed a barrage of new weapons, their energy beams slicing through the Krell shields like they were made of paper. Krell support ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light, creating a gap in their defensive line. Vexkar, monitoring the battle from Xylox, saw his opportunity. All available ships, he commanded, form up on me. We're going for the hive's external power generators. This is our chance to end this. Inside the hive's control room, Jason and Zelna worked feverishly to disable the self-destruct sequence. Jason's fingers flew over the alien controls, guided by Zelna's instructions and his own enhanced understanding of Krell technology. There, Zelna exclaimed as the countdown froze, then disappeared from the screens. The self-destruct is neutralized. But as Jason delved deeper into the hive's systems, he uncovered something that made his blood run cold. Zelna, he said slowly, what is this? The Krell scientist moved to his side, her compound eyes widening as she saw what Jason had found. By the first queen, she whispered. It's true. What's true? Jason demanded. Zelna's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of distress. The hive. It's not just a battle station. It's a generation ship. Our homeworld is gone, rendered uninhabitable by a gamma ray burst. We came here seeking a new home, not just to conquer. The revelation hit Jason like a physical blow. Before he could respond, the door to the control room slid open. Jason spun around, energy crackling around his hands, only to find himself face to face with Zara. His daughter had changed. She stood taller, her eyes glowing with an inner light that spoke of power and knowledge beyond her years. Dad, she said, her voice filled with relief and urgency, I found something. Something that could change everything. As Zara began to explain about the terraforming technology, the hive shuddered. Vexcar's assault on the external power generators had begun, causing fluctuations throughout the station. Jason seized the moment, using the power disruption to bypass the final security measures and gain full control of the hive systems. With Zelna's guidance, he opened a ship-wide communication channel. Attention! All Krell forces in Earth Jem'Hadar Alliance. Jason's voice boomed throughout the hive and across all communication frequencies. This is Jason Vance. I have control of the hive, and I have discovered the truth about this conflict. The Krell are not just invaders. They are refugees, seeking a new home after the loss of their own world. As Jason continued to explain the situation, the battles both inside and outside the hive ground to a halt. Admiral Chen ordered an immediate ceasefire, while the Krell Supreme Commander, its plans exposed, reluctantly agreed to negotiations. In the control room, Jason, Zara, and Zelna began formulating a plan to use the terraforming technology to restore the Krell homeworld. However, their discussion was interrupted by an urgent message from Zelna's contacts within the hive. A faction of hardline zealots, led by the hive's second-in-command, refuses to accept the ceasefire, Zelna reported, her antennae twitching nervously. They're planning to resume the attack with or without the Supreme Commander's approval. Jason's teeth clenched in purpose. Then we need to stop them before they can reignite this war. He turned to Zara. Can you use your abilities to lock down critical systems throughout the hive? Zara nodded, her eyes already beginning to glow as she interfaced with the hive's network. Zelna and I will work on isolating and containing the zealots, Jason continued. We need to buy time for the negotiations to succeed. As they set their plan in motion, Jason couldn't help but feel the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. The fate of multiple species hung in the balance, and one wrong move could plunge them all back into a catastrophic war. But for the first time since the conflict began, there was a glimmer of hope, a chance for peace, born from an unlikely alliance between human, Krell, and hybrid. Jem'Hadar alike. But for the first time since the conflict began, there was a glimmer of hope, a chance for peace, born from an unlikely alliance between human, Krell, and Jem'Hadar. As negotiations between the human Jem'Hadar alliance and the Krell Supreme Commander progressed, Jason, Zara, and Zelna turned their focus to neutralizing the hardline Krell faction within the hive. The massive structure hummed with tension as Zara, her eyes glowing with an otherworldly light, interfaced with the hive's systems. I'm initiating lockdown protocols, Zara announced, her fingers dancing across the control panel. Isolating the zealots in sectors 7 through 12. Jason nodded, his hybrid features set with tenacity. Good work. Zelna and I will handle containment. Keep us updated on any changes. As they moved through the hive's twisting corridors, Jason couldn't help but notice the way Zelna's iridescent scales shimmered under the harsh artificial lighting. Her alien form moved with a grace that belied her insectoid appearance, and he found himself increasingly aware of her presence. They encountered their first pocket of resistance in a narrow passageway. A group of hardline Krell, their mandibles clicking furiously, opened fire with plasma rifles. Jason's reflexes, honed by his hybrid physiology, allowed him to deflect the energy bolts with a swift motion of his hand. Zelna darted forward, her movements fluid and precise. She struck a zealot at the base of its thorax, causing it to collapse in a heap. Pressure point, she explained, her compound eyes fixed on Jason. Incapacitates without permanent damage. Together, they worked their way through the hive, subduing the pockets of resistance they encountered. Jason's energy manipulation proved devastatingly effective against Krell weapons, while Zelna's intimate knowledge of her species' physiology allowed her to neutralize threats with surgical precision. As they moved deeper into the hive, the confined spaces forced them into close proximity. Jason felt the brush of Zelna's exoskeleton against his skin, sending an unexpected shiver down his spine. He caught her gaze, noticing a flicker of something, curiosity, attraction, in her alien eyes. Their progress was interrupted by Zara's voice in Jason's mind. "Dad, I've found something, a hidden database on Krell biology and reproduction. It explains so much about why they're so desperate for new worlds." "Good work," Jason replied telepathically. "Keep digging. Any information could be crucial for the negotiations." As they pressed on, Jason and Zelna stumbled upon a heavily guarded chamber deep within the hive. After a brief but intense skirmish with the guards, they breached the entrance and found themselves face to face with a group of Krell scientists hunched over a strange device. "By the first queen," Zelna gasped, her antennae quivering. "That's a genetic alteration device. It combines our terraforming technology with something else." Jason's eyes widened as he recognized components similar to the nexus of melding. "They're planning to forcibly transform humans and Jem'Hadar into Krell hybrids," he realized, horror creeping into his voice. Before they could act, alarms blared throughout the chamber. Zara's urgent voice filled Jason's mind. "Dad, the zealots are trying to override my lockdown on the weapon systems. If they succeed, the war will reignite," Jason finished grimly. He turned to Zelna, their eyes meeting in a moment of shared understanding. "We need to stop them and secure this device. It could be the key to ending this conflict once and for all." As they prepared to move, Jason received another telepathic message, this time from Queen Hera. Her mental voice was tinged with a new clarity and insight. "Jason, the merging with the Jem'Hadar volunteers has shown me a new path. We must find a solution that preserves what makes each of our species unique. There's potential for cooperation beyond anything we've imagined." With renewed purpose, Jason and Zelna secured the prototype device and raced towards the hive's central weapons control. The corridors blurred around them as they sprinted, their bodies in perfect sync despite their vastly different physiologies. They burst into the control room to find a group of Krell zealots frantically working to bypass Zara's lockdown protocols. Energy crackled around Jason's hands as he prepared to engage, while Zelna's body tensed, ready to strike. The lead zealot, his carapace adorned with intricate markings of authority, turned to face them. His mandibles clicked in a pattern that Zelna recognized as a challenge. "You cannot stop the inevitable," he hissed. "The Krell will survive, despite the toll to lesser species." Jason stepped forward, his hybrid features set with dedication. "There's another way," he said, gesturing to the prototype device they had brought. "A way for all our species to coexist and thrive." As tensions in the room reached a fever pitch, Zara's voice echoed through the hive's communication systems. "I have a plan," she announced, her tone filled with confidence beyond her years. "But I need everyone's cooperation. It's time to end this conflict, not through destruction, but through transformation." The zealots hesitated, their compound eyes darting between Jason, Zelna, and the device they carried. The fate of multiple worlds hung in the balance as the two sides faced off, each aware that the next few moments would shape the course of galactic history. Jason's mind raced considering their options. He knew they needed to act fast to prevent the zealots from reigniting the war, but he also recognized the importance of Zara's plan. Whatever she had discovered could be the key to lasting peace. As the tension in the room reached its peak, Jason made his decision. He would have to trust in his daughter's abilities and the unlikely alliance they had forged. With a subtle nod to Zelna, he prepared to make his move, knowing that the next few moments would determine the future of not just Earth and Xylox, but the entire Krell species as well. Well, the fate of multiple worlds hung in the balance as the two sides faced off, each aware that the next few moments would shape the course of galactic history. Jason's eyes locked with the lead zealot's compound gaze. In that moment, he made his decision. Zara, he communicated telepathically, whatever your plan is, we need it now. We'll buy you time. With a subtle nod to Selna, Jason sprang into action. Energy crackled around his hands as he unleashed a burst of power, not at the zealots, but at the control panels surrounding them. Sparks erupted from the consoles, temporarily disorienting the Krell warriors. Selna moved with preternatural grace, her iridescent scales shimmering as she darted between the stunned zealots. Her strikes were precise and effective, targeting pressure points that left her opponents incapacitated but unharmed. The lead zealot, recovering quickly, lunged at Jason with mandibles snapping. "You cannot stop us," he hissed, his carapace gleaming under the harsh lights of the control room. Jason ducked under the attack, using his hybrid reflexes to narrowly avoid the zealots' razor-sharp appendages. He could feel the rush of air as they passed mere centimeters from his face. As Jason and Zelna fought to contain the zealots, alarms blared throughout the hive. The sound of distant explosions echoed through the structure, a reminder of the ongoing battle outside. "We need to move," Zelna called out, her antennae twitching with urgency. "The secondary control room, that's where they'll try to override the weapon systems." Jason nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. If the zealots managed to reactivate the hive's weapons, the fragile ceasefire would shatter, plunging them back into full-scale war. They raced through the twisting corridors of the hive, the prototype genetic alteration device clutched tightly in Jason's arms. Behind them, they could hear the shouts and heavy footfalls of the zealots in pursuit. As they rounded a corner, they encountered a squad of Krell warriors, their plasma rifles raised and ready to fire. Jason reacted instinctively, throwing up an energy barrier that deflected the incoming bolts. Zelna's voice cut through the chaos. "Jason, the ventilation shafts. We can use them to bypass their defenses." Without hesitation, Jason followed Zelna's lead. They clambered into a narrow opening, the tight space forcing them into close proximity. Jason could feel the smooth texture of Zelna's exoskeleton against his skin, a stark reminder of their alien physiology. As they navigated the labyrinthine network of shafts, Jason's mind raced. He could sense Zara's presence, her consciousness reaching out to him through their telepathic link. "Dad," her voice echoed in his thoughts, "I've almost got it. The solution, it's more complex than we realized. I need more time." "Do what you can," Jason responded silently. "We'll hold them off as long as possible." They emerged from the ventilation system into a dimly lit corridor. Ahead, they could see the entrance to the secondary control room, heavily guarded by a contingent of zealots led by a towering Krell warrior. "Krovak," Zelna whispered, her compound eyes widening in recognition. "He's their strongest fighter, augmented with experimental Krell technology." Jason assessed the situation quickly. "We need to get past them and secure that room. Ready?" Zelna nodded, her body tensing for action. Together, they charged forward, catching the guards by surprise. Jason unleashed a wave of energy that sent several zealots flying backward. Zelna moved with liquid grace, her strikes precise and devastating as she engaged the remaining guards. Krovak, however, stood his ground. The massive Krell warrior activated a personal shield generator, the air around him shimmering with a faint blue glow. "Your efforts are futile," Krovak growled, his mandibles clicking in challenge. "The Krell will prevail, regardless of the cost." Jason circled the augmented warrior cautiously, searching for a weakness in his defenses. Energy crackled around his hands as he probed the shield with short bursts of power, each one dissipating harmlessly against the barrier. Selna joined him, her expert eyes analyzing Krovak's movements. "The shield, it's impervious to direct energy attacks," she observed. "We need to find another way." As they engaged Krovak in a deadly dance, Jason's mind raced, seeking a solution. The corridor around them bore the scars of their battle, scorch marks and debris littering the floor. Suddenly, an idea struck him. Jason focused his powers, not on Krovak directly, but on the environment around him. The air began to shimmer and distort as Jason manipulated the local gravitational field. Krovak's movements became sluggish, his massive form struggling against the increased gravity. The Krell warrior's compound eyes widened in surprise as he found himself unable to advance. Seizing the opportunity, Selna darted forward. With precise strikes, she targeted the weak points in Krovak's exoskeleton, her knowledge of Krell physiology proving invaluable. The augmented warrior's legs buckled, and he crashed to the ground with a resounding thud. With Krovak subdued, Jason and Zelna rushed into the secondary control room. Zelna's fingers flew over the alien controls, her expertise allowing her to quickly shut down the zealots' attempts to reactivate the hive's weapons. As the immediate threat subsided, Jason and Zelna found themselves standing close, their breath coming in short gasps from the exertion of battle. The adrenaline coursing through their veins heightened their awareness of each other, the attraction that had been simmering between them suddenly impossible to ignore. In a moment of shared relief and pent-up emotion, they embraced. The feeling of Zelna's alien form against Jason's hybrid body was strange yet thrilling, a physical manifestation of the bridges they were building between their species. Their moment was interrupted by an urgent communication. Queen Hera's voice filled Jason's mind, tinged with excitement and hope. "Jason, the connection with the Jem'Hadar volunteers? It's given us unprecedented insight into Krell biology. I believe we found a way to modify the prototype device, a solution that could benefit all our species." As Queen Hera began to explain her discoveries, Jason and Zelna shared a look of cautious optimism. They had won this battle, but the real challenge, finding a peaceful resolution that would satisfy all parties, still lay ahead. With Krovak secured and the immediate threat neutralized, they prepared to return to the main control room. The prototype genetic alteration device, which had remained safely with them throughout the conflict, now held the potential to reshape the future of their intertwined species. As they made their way back, Jason's thoughts turned to Zara and the complex web of relationships he found himself at the center of. The coming negotiations would not only determine the fate of the conflict, but also the future of human, Jem'Hadar, and Krell relations. With each step, they moved closer to a crossroads that would shape the course of galactic history. As Jason and Zelna approached the main control room, the prototype genetic alteration device clutched tightly in Jason's arms. A sudden tremor shook the hive. Alarms blared, their piercing wail echoing through the corridors. "What's happening?" Jason shouted over the cacophony, his eyes darting to Zelna. Before she could respond, the device in Jason's arms pulsed violently, emitting a burst of energy that sent him staggering. Zelna steadied him, her touch electric even in the chaos. "The device!" Zara's voice cut through their minds. "It's destabilizing!" They burst into the control room to find Zara hunched over a console, her fingers flying across the alien interface. Krovak stood nearby, his massive form tense with concern. "The integration of our genetic data," Zara explained rapidly, her eyes never leaving the screen. "It's created an unforeseen reaction in the device's core." Another pulse rocked the room, and Jason felt the energy crackling around his hands intensify. Without a word, he and Zelna moved in unison, channeling their powers to contain the device's erratic emissions. "We need to create a containment field," Jason grunted, sweat beading on his brow as he struggled to control the surging energy. Zelna nodded, her iridescent scales shimmering with effort as she joined her power with his. Together, they wove a shimmering barrier around the device, its surface rippling with each pulse of energy. As Jason and Zelna fought to maintain the containment field, Zara and Krovak huddled over the control panel, their unlikely partnership born of necessity. "The hive's power levels are fluctuating," Krovak growled, his mandibles clicking with agitation. "The damage from the earlier battles is interfering with our efforts to recalibrate the device." Zara's brow furrowed in concentration. "We need to stabilize the power flow. If we can't..." Her words were cut off by a violent shudder that rocked the entire structure. Warning lights flashed across the control panel, painting the room in an ominous red glow. "Hull breach detected in multiple sectors," an automated voice announced. "Emergency force fields failing." Jason's heart raced as the implications sank in. If they couldn't contain the device and stabilize the hive, the repercussions could be catastrophic, not just for them, but for both Xylox and Earth. Krovak's voice cut through the tension. "I know the hive's emergency protocols. We can reroute power from non-essential systems to reinforce the affected areas." Jason met the Krell warrior's compound eyes, seeing not an enemy, but an ally. "Do it," he nodded. As Krovak set to work, his clawed hands moving with surprising dexterity over the controls, Jason and Zelna redoubled their efforts to contain the malfunctioning device. Their bodies moved in perfect synchronization, adjusting the energy field with practiced precision. Jason became acutely aware of Zelna's proximity, the warmth of her alien form beside him. Despite the dire circumstances, he found himself distracted by the graceful curve of her neck, the determined set of her mandibles. Their eyes met briefly, and Jason felt a jolt that had nothing to do with the energy coursing through his hands. Zara, glancing up from her work, caught the exchange between her father and Zelna. A complex mix of emotions flitted across her face, happiness tinged with a hint of uncertainty. She pushed the feelings aside, refocusing on the task at hand with renewed perseverance. The moment was broken by urgent communication. Admiral Chen's holographic form flickered to life above the control panel. "Jason," Chen's voice was tense but controlled. "We've had a breakthrough. Our adapted Krell shield destabilizing technology. We've successfully modified it for medical use. We believe it could help stabilize the genetic alteration device." Hope surged through Jason. "How soon can you get a team here?" "They're prepping for immediate departure," Chen replied. "But Jason, you need to act fast. Our sensors show the hive's structural integrity is approaching critical levels." As if to emphasize Chen's words, another tremor shook the room. Jason could hear the distant sound of creaking metal, the hive groaning under the strain. "Krovak," Jason called out, "we need a secure docking area for the human team. Can you handle it?" The Krell warrior nodded, his earlier hostility replaced by fierce dedication. "Consider it done." As Krovak left to prepare for the humans' arrival, Zelna spoke up. "I'll escort them to the control room. We can't afford any delays or misunderstandings." Jason felt a pang at the thought of Zelna leaving his side, but he knew she was right. He nodded, their eyes meeting in a moment of unspoken communication. As they waited for the human scientists to arrive, a familiar presence touched Jason's mind. Queen Hera's mental voice was clear and urgent. "Jason, I've had an insight," she began. "The key to stabilizing the device isn't further genetic manipulation. It's about finding a harmonic resonance between our species' energy signatures." Zara's eyes widened as she processed this information. "Of course," she breathed, her fingers already flying over the controls. "We need to create a balanced frequency." Jason watched in awe as his daughter worked, her hybrid nature allowing her to intuitively grasp concepts that bridge the gap between human and alien understanding. The energy pulses from the device began to change, becoming less chaotic and more rhythmic. Sensing the shift, Jason joined Zara at the controls. Father and daughter worked in tandem, their combined abilities creating a visible aura around the device. The energy field pulsed with colors that seemed to represent each of their species: the warm red of humanity, the cool blue of the Jem'Hadar, and the vibrant green of the Krell. As they worked, the door slid open. Zelna entered, leading a team of human scientists laden with equipment. She paused, her compound eyes widening at the sight before her. The humans quickly set up their equipment, preparing to implement their shield destabilizing technology. Jason, Zara, and Zelna took up positions around the device, ready to channel its energy. As the final preparations were made, Jason's eyes met Zelna's. In that moment, despite the chaos around them, a current of understanding passed between them. Whatever the outcome, they faced it together, not just for their species, but for each other. With a nod from the lead scientist, they began the stabilization process. Energy surged through the room, the fate of 3 species hanging in the balance as human, Krell, and hybrid worked as one to save the hive and usher in a new era of cooperation. Interspecies cooperation to save the hive and usher in a new era of understanding. As the final adjustments were made, a palpable tension filled the air. Jason nodded to the lead scientist, who initiated the stabilization process with a few deft keystrokes. Instantly, the genetic alteration device surged to life, emitting a blinding pulse of energy that swept through the control room. The device's pulsating light bathed everything in a mesmerizing kaleidoscope of colors. Reds, blues, and greens intertwined, representing the genetic signatures of humans, Jem'Hadar, and Krell. The energy field expanded rapidly, enveloping the entire hive structure and stretching out into the void of space. Jason felt the surge course through his body, his hybrid abilities amplifying the sensation. Beside him, Zara gasped, her eyes wide with wonder as she channeled the energy flow. Zelna's scales shimmered, her compound eyes reflecting the swirling colors as she focused intently on fine-tuning the genetic sequencing. The human scientists moved with practiced efficiency, their fingers flying over holographic displays as they monitored and adjusted countless parameters. Krovak, his earlier hostility now a distant memory, stood at a nearby console, expertly managing the hive's power distribution to support the massive energy demands of the process. As the minutes ticked by, the effects of their efforts became increasingly apparent. The distant groaning of stressed metals ceased, replaced by an almost organic hum as the hive began to heal itself. Jason watched in awe as a nearby hull breach sealed before his eyes, the metal flowing like liquid before solidifying into a seamless barrier. "The force fields are regenerating," one of the human scientists called out, her voice filled with excitement, "and power levels are stabilizing across all sectors." But the changes weren't limited to the hive's structure. Jason noticed a tingling sensation spreading through his body, his senses sharpening. He glanced at Zelna and saw that her scales had taken on a subtle iridescence, her form shifting almost imperceptibly. "Father, look!" Zara exclaimed, holding out her hands. The rapid aging that had plagued her since birth seemed to have halted, her hybrid nature finding a perfect equilibrium. Before Jason could respond, Admiral Chen's hologram flickered to life above the control panel. "Jason, are you seeing this?" Chen's voice was filled with nearly unleashed excitement. "We're detecting widespread genetic adaptations across all species in the vicinity, enhanced physical capabilities, accelerated healing. It's exactly what we hoped for, but on a scale we never imagined." As Chen spoke, reports began flooding in from throughout the hive. Krell crew members described sudden improvements in their ability to adapt to different environmental conditions. Human and Jem'Hadar forces on nearby ships reported similar enhancements. The energy field's expansion began to slow, its edges stabilizing into a shimmering bubble that encompassed the hive and a significant portion of the surrounding space. As the immediate crisis subsided, Jason felt a wave of relief wash over him. They had done it. Against impossible odds, they had not only saved the hive, but potentially revolutionized the future of all three species. Zelna approached Jason, her movements more fluid than before. "The Krell Supreme Commander is requesting to speak with you," she said, her voice carrying a new depth of emotion. "They wish to initiate formal peace negotiations." Jason nodded, feeling a surge of hope. As he prepared to take the call, he noticed Zara deep in concentration, her eyes closed. "I can feel them," she whispered, opening her eyes. "Humans, Jem'Hadar, Krell. It's like I'm a living conduit between our species." The implications of Zara's newfound ability were staggering, but before Jason could explore them further, Vexkar's voice cut through the comms. "Jason, Zelna, you need to see this," the Jem'Hadar warrior said, his tone urgent. "The planetary defense network on Xylox. It's been supercharged by the energy field. We're detecting effectiveness levels beyond anything we've ever seen." As the group absorbed this latest development, the human scientists began packing up their equipment. "We need to get these samples back to Earth for further study," the lead scientist explained. "But before we go, we'd like to upgrade your medical facilities with our latest adaptations of the Krell shield destabilizing technology. Consider it a gesture of ongoing cooperation." Jason agreed, his mind already racing with the possibilities that lay ahead. As the scientist worked, he turned to Zelna, drawn to her in a way he couldn't fully explain. Their eyes met, and a current of understanding passed between them. "We should discuss a formal alliance between our species," Zelna said, her voice soft but filled with conviction. "What we've accomplished here today, it could be just the beginning." Jason nodded, acutely aware of how their personal relationship might serve as a symbol of unity in the new interspecies society they were forging. But before he could respond, Zara approached, her eyes gleaming with excitement. "I think I understand my powers now," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "I can facilitate communication and understanding between our species in ways we never thought possible." As Jason listened to his daughter, he felt a profound sense of change settling over them all. The immediate crisis had passed, but the true work was just beginning. They would need to carefully implement the genetic alteration technology on a larger scale, addressing the myriad ethical and practical considerations that came with such power. "We should return to Xylox," Jason said, looking at Zelna and Zara. "We can establish a joint research facility there, dedicated to refining this technology and exploring its full potential." As they began making preparations to leave the hive, Jason couldn't shake the feeling that they stood on the precipice of a new era. The actions they had taken here would ripple across the galaxy, reshaping the future of human, Jem'Hadar, and Krell alike. With Hazelna at his side and Zara's newfound abilities bridging the gap between species, Jason felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The hive, once a symbol of conflict, now stood as a testament to what they could achieve together. As Jason looked out at the shimmering energy field surrounding them, he knew that their journey was nowhere near the end. The true test would be in how they used this new power to build a lasting peace and push the boundaries of what was possible for all their species. As they prepared to depart from the hive, an unexpected complication arose. The genetic alteration device, which had seemed stable moments ago, began emitting irregular energy pulses. The control room's screens flashed with warning indicators, and a low hum filled the air. "What's happening?" Jason asked, his eyes darting between the device and the main display. Zelna moved swiftly to a nearby console, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "The pulses are interfering with the hive's navigation systems," she reported, her voice tense. "We can't plot a safe course back to Xylox." Jason joined her at the console, their bodies close as they worked side by side to stabilize the device. The proximity sent a jolt of awareness through him, but he pushed the feeling aside, focusing on the task at hand. "If we can't stabilize it, we might drift into a gravitational well," Jason said, adjusting the energy output. "Zara, can you help recalibrate the navigation systems?" Zara nodded, moving to another section of the control room. As she worked, her eyes widened. "Father Zelna, I found something," she called out. "There's a hidden subroutine in the hive's programming. It's transforming the station." As if on cue, a deep rumble echoed through the structure. The floor beneath their feet vibrated, and the walls seemed to ripple. Jason steadied himself against the console, his hand inadvertently brushing against Selna's. Their eyes met for a moment, a current of electricity passing between them before they turned back to their work. "Krovak," Jason called out, "can you establish communication with Xylox?" The Krell warrior nodded, his fingers flying over the controls. After a tense moment, Queen Hera's holographic form appeared before them. "Jason, what's happening?" Hera asked, her voice filled with concern. As Jason explained the situation, the transformation of the hive accelerated. Corridors shifted and realigned, new chambers formed, and previously dormant systems sprang to life. The control room itself began to change, panels sliding into new configurations and unfamiliar interfaces emerging. "We need to adapt quickly," Zelna said, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "The hive is evolving to accommodate our altered physiologies." Jason watched in amazement as Zelna's scales took on a new iridescence, her form becoming even more fluid and adaptable. The other Krell crew members were undergoing similar changes, their bodies harmonizing with the transforming environment. Zara's voice cut through the commotion. "I think I can influence the transformation," she said, her eyes closed in concentration. "I can feel the hive systems. They're responding to my thoughts." As Zara worked, the chaotic rearrangement of the hive became more purposeful. New sections emerged, perfectly suited for human, Jem'Hadar, and Krell inhabitants. The navigation system stabilized, but instead of plotting a course back to Xylox, they locked onto a nearby uninhabited solar system. "Jason," Admiral Chen's voice came through the comm system, "we're detecting massive energy signatures from the hive. What's your status?" "We're stable, Admiral," Jason replied, his eyes on the main display showing their new destination. But we've got a change of plans. The hive, it's taking us somewhere new. As Jason explained the situation to Chen, Zelna made a startling discovery. The genetic alteration device, she said, her voice filled with wonder. It's fully integrated into the hive systems now. It's become part of the power core. The implications of this development raced through Jason's mind. A self-sustaining, adaptable station capable of transforming itself and its inhabitants to suit any environment. The possibilities were endless. We need to inform the Krell Supreme Commander, Jason said, turning to Zelna. This changes everything. As they worked to establish communication with the Krell leadership, the newly transformed hive entered the outskirts of the target solar system. The main view screen showed a series of planets, each one a potential candidate for colonization. Jason felt a surge of excitement. This was more than just a scientific breakthrough or a diplomatic milestone. It was the dawn of a new era of interspecies cooperation and exploration. As the hive settled into orbit around the first planet, a newly formed observation deck provided a breathtaking view of the alien world below. Jason found himself alone with Zelna, the privacy and the spectacular vista creating an intimate atmosphere. We did it, Jason said softly, turning to face her. Zelna's compound eyes reflected the light of the new world as she met his gaze. We've only just begun, she replied, her voice equally soft. The tension between them, built up over their shared trials and triumphs, finally reached its breaking point. Their lips met in a kiss that was both tender and passionate, a symbolic union of their species and a promise of the future they would build together. Meanwhile, Zara continued to explore her newfound connection with the hive. She discovered she could access its vast database with a mere thought, processing information at an unprecedented rate. As she prepared for the first landing mission, she realized that her role as a bridge between species had expanded to include the living ship itself. The team gathered in the newly formed launch bay, their bodies and equipment adapted to the challenges that awaited them on the surface. As the bay doors opened, revealing the alien landscape below, Jason felt a thrill of anticipation. Ready? He asked, looking at Zelna and Zara. They nodded, their faces reflecting the same mix of excitement and commitment that he felt. As one, they stepped towards the waiting shuttle, prepared to take the first steps into their bold new future. Future. As the shuttle bay doors closed behind them, Jason felt a surge of anticipation coursing through his veins. The newly transformed hive had brought them to an unexplored solar system, and now they were about to set foot on a potentially habitable world. The shuttle hummed to life, its systems a perfect blend of human ingenuity, Jem'Hadar efficiency, and Krell adaptability. As they began their descent through the planet's atmosphere, Jason noticed Zelna's elegant fingers dancing across the control panel, making minute adjustments to the life support systems. Suddenly, the shuttle shuddered violently, caught in unexpected turbulence. Warning lights flashed across the console as Zelna called out, "Electromagnetic interference. It's disrupting our stabilizers." Without hesitation, Jason reached out with his newfound energy manipulation abilities. He visualized a protective field surrounding the shuttle, willing it into existence. The turbulence subsided as the shimmering barrier deflected the electromagnetic waves. "Nice work," Zara said, her eyes closed in concentration. "I'm relaying our status back to the hive." As they broke through the cloud cover, a breathtaking vista spread out before them. The planet's surface was carpeted in a dense forest of colossal, luminescent structures that defied easy classification as either plant or animal. The shuttle touched down in a small clearing, and as the team disembarked, Jason took his first breath of alien air. The higher oxygen content hit him immediately, sending a pleasant tingle through his body. He noticed Zelna's scales shimmer with an iridescent glow, adapting to the new environment. Krovak, the Krell warrior, seemed to grow more alert, his movements becoming even more precise. "The air," Zelna said, her voice filled with wonder. "It's, invigorating." Jason nodded, fighting the urge to laugh at the slight euphoria washing over him. "Let's stay focused. We don't know what effects this atmosphere might have on us long term." As they began to set up their base camp, Zara frowned, tapping at her communicator. The electromagnetic interference is stronger than we anticipated. I can barely maintain contact with the hive. Jason and Zelna exchanged a glance, then moved in unison to address the problem. Working together, they cobbled together a makeshift signal booster using components from their equipment and biological material Zelna produced from her adapted physiology. As night fell, the forest came alive with pulsating bioluminescence. The team gathered around their adaptive shelter, mesmerized by the alien beauty surrounding them. Jason found himself standing close to Zelna, their shoulders nearly touching as they gazed at the spectacle. A rustling in the underbrush caught their attention. Krell moved swiftly, positioning himself between the team and the potential threat. From the glowing foliage emerged a group of strange, quadrupedal creatures. Their bodies pulsed with internal light, patterns rippling across their skin in complex sequences. "Fascinating," Zelna whispered. "They appear to have a hive-like social structure." Krell stepped forward, his body language shifting subtly. He began to pulse his own bioluminescent patterns, attempting to mimic the creature's movements. The aliens, quickly dubbed Luminites by the team, responded with curious chirps and flashes of light. As the night wore on, Jason and Zelna took the first watch. They sat side by side, their bodies close in the cool night air. The beauty of the alien world and the thrill of discovery heightened Jason's awareness of Zelna's presence. "Do you think we'll find answers here?" Zelna asked softly, her compound eyes reflecting the bioluminescent glow around them. Before Jason could respond, Zara emerged from the shelter, her expression a mix of excitement and confusion. "Father Zelna, you need to see this," she said urgently. She led them to a display showing the surrounding area. "I've been tracking the bioluminescent patterns. They're not random. They correspond to fluctuations in the planet's electromagnetic field. It's like the whole planet is communicating." The implications of Zara's discovery hung in the air as dawn broke over the alien world. As the team prepared to continue their exploration, Jason couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the verge of something monumental. They ventured deeper into the forest, the towering structures looming overhead. The Luminites followed at a distance, their curiosity evident in their pulsing patterns. After several hours of trekking, the dense foliage gave way to a vast clearing. "By the ancestors," Zelna breathed, her voice filled with awe. Before them stood the remnants of an ancient civilization. Structures of an unknown material rose from the ground, their surfaces shifting and reconfiguring in response to the planet's electromagnetic pulses. As they cautiously approached the ruins, Jason felt a strange resonance within him. Without thinking, he reached out and touched one of the structures. A surge of energy coursed through him, and the entire site came to life. The ground beneath their feet trembled as hidden mechanisms whirred to life. The team watched in amazement as the ruins reconfigured themselves, revealing a concealed chamber at their center. "Jason!" Zelna called out, her voice tight with excitement. "Look at this!" Inside the chamber, bathed in a soft, pulsating light, sat an artifact that bore an uncanny resemblance to the genetic alteration device they had used on the hive. As Jason reached for it, the Luminites' agitation grew palpable, their bioluminescent displays becoming erratic and intense. Suddenly, the planet's electromagnetic field surged, sending waves of energy washing over the team. Their hybrid physiologies reacted violently, causing Jason to stagger and Zelna to gasp in pain. "We need to stabilize ourselves," Jason grunted, fighting against the disorientation. He reached out with his energy manipulation abilities, creating a protective field around the group. Zelna joined her power with his, strengthening the barrier. "Zara," she called out, "can you use your connection to the hive to help stabilize us?" As Zara concentrated, reaching out to the distant station, the Luminites began to gather in greater numbers. Their agitation grew, their bioluminescent patterns becoming increasingly complex and synchronized. Krell, who had been observing the creatures intently, suddenly spoke up. "They're afraid," he said, his voice urgent. "They believe we're desecrating something sacred." The situation was rapidly spiraling out of control. The team's equipment sparked and sputtered under the intensifying electromagnetic assault. The Luminites pressed closer, their agitation threatening to boil over into outright hostility. In that moment of crisis, Jason made a decision that would change the course of their mission, and possibly the fate of this alien world. He turned to his team, his eyes blazing with drive. "We need to communicate," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos surrounding them. "Not just with the Luminites, but with the planet itself." Selna's eyes widened as she grasped his meaning. "You want to use the artifact?" she said, not a question but a statement of understanding. Jason nodded, his gaze sweeping over his daughter and the rest of the team. "It's a risk, but I believe this world's electromagnetic field might be more than just a natural phenomenon. It could be a form of planetary consciousness." As the team prepared to attempt this unprecedented form of communication, the alien forest pulsed around them, alive with possibility and fraught with danger. The fate of their mission, and perhaps the key to understanding the true nature of their hybrid existence, hung in the balance. Balance hung in the air. Jason took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. But before he could take action, Zara stepped forward, her eyes shining with grit. "Father, wait," she said, her voice calm but urgent. "I think I can help. My hybrid abilities might allow me to act as a conduit between us and the planet's electromagnetic field." Jason hesitated, his protective instincts warring with the recognition of his daughter's unique capabilities. He glanced at Zelna, who nodded her approval. "All right," Jason agreed, "but we'll need to be careful. We don't know the full extent of what we're dealing with here." Zara approached the artifact at the center of the ruins, her steps measured and deliberate. As she reached out to touch it, the air around her seemed to crackle with energy. The moment her fingers made contact, a brilliant surge of light engulfed her body. Zara gasped, her form now pulsing with an intense bioluminescence that matched the surrounding flora. The Luminites, which had been growing increasingly agitated, suddenly calmed. They gathered closer, their own bioluminescent patterns shifting to match Zara's glow. The forest around them seemed to hold its breath, waiting. Jason and Zelna moved swiftly, working in tandem to create a stabilizing energy field around Zara. Their hybrid physiologies allowed them to manipulate the electromagnetic waves, forming a protective cocoon around their daughter. "Krovac," Jason called out, "monitor the planet's electromagnetic fluctuations. We need to know if anything spikes dangerously." The Krell warrior nodded, his enhanced senses attuned to the subtle changes in the environment. The rest of the team formed a protective perimeter, their weapons at the ready, though the immediate threat seemed to have passed. Zara stood motionless, her eyes closed in deep concentration. The artifact began to resonate, its frequency aligning with the planet's electromagnetic pulses. The forest around them came alive, pulsating in a mesmerizing symphony of light and color. Suddenly, Zara's eyes snapped open, glowing with an otherworldly light. When she spoke, her voice seemed to echo with layers of alien harmonies. "The planet, it's alive," she said, her words strained as if translating a complex language. "It calls itself Lumina. The Luminites, they're extensions of its consciousness, its senses, its caretakers." Jason and Zelna exchanged a look of wonder. Their theory had been correct. The planet itself was a form of consciousness. "What about the ruins?" Zelna asked, her scientific curiosity overriding her caution. "And the artifact?" Zara's brow furrowed as she processed the information flowing through her. "They're part of a fail-safe system," she explained, "left behind by an ancient civilization to protect Lumina's balance." As Zara continued to communicate, the planet's consciousness began to express concern about their presence. Jason recognized the need to act quickly to prevent any misunderstandings. "Zelna," he said, meeting her gaze, "we need to join the link. Show Lumina our intentions." Without hesitation, they stepped forward, placing their hands on the artifact alongside Zara. The moment they made contact, a rush of sensations flooded their minds. They felt the vastness of Lumina's consciousness, its curiosity, and its ancient wisdom. Together, they shared their experiences, the formation of their alliance, the transformation of the hive, and their mission of peaceful exploration. They conveyed their respect for life in all its forms and their desire for cooperation and understanding. As their message was received, they felt a shift in Lumina's attitude. The planet's consciousness opened up, granting them access to a portion of its vast knowledge base. Images and concepts flooded their minds, a network of similar worlds scattered across the galaxy, each housing artifacts and ruins left by the ancient civilization. These planets formed an interconnected system, designed to foster the evolution and cooperation of diverse species. The realization hit them like a shockwave. Their mission, the transformed hive, the genetic alteration technology, all of it was part of something far greater than they had imagined. They were not just explorers, but potential key players in unlocking the full potential of this galactic network. As the communication began to wind down, Lumina conveyed one final gift. A small, seed-like object materialized next to the artifact, pulsing with bioluminescent energy. It contains the essence of Lumina's consciousness, Zara translated, her voice filled with awe. It can be used to establish a permanent link between the planet and the hive. Slowly, the connection began to fade. Zara's glow dimmed, and Jason and Zelna felt themselves being gently pushed back into their own consciousness. As they came back to full awareness, they found themselves surrounded by the team and a circle of curious Luminites. Jason took a deep breath, feeling the weight of their discoveries settling on his shoulders. He looked at his team, Zelna, Zara, Krovak, and the others, seeing the same mix of exhaustion and exhilaration on their faces. "We need to return to the hive," he announced, his voice steady despite the turmoil of emotions within him. "What we've learned here, it changes everything." As they carefully retrieved the artifact in the seed, the Luminites formed an honor guard, their bioluminescent patterns creating a mesmerizing farewell display. The team made their way back to the shuttle, each lost in thought about the implications of their discoveries. During the return journey, Jason found himself in the shuttle's cockpit with Selna. The privacy of the moment allowed them to process the shared experience of communicating with Lumina. "I never imagined," Zelna began, her voice trailing off as she struggled to find the right words. Jason reached out, taking her hand in his. "I know," he said softly. "This goes beyond anything we could have predicted. The potential for what we can learn, what we can achieve." Their eyes met, and in that moment, they both felt the deepening of their bond. The challenges ahead were immense, but so too were the possibilities. As the shuttle approached the hive, they could see that news of their discoveries had already spread. The station was abuzz with activity, and as they docked, they were met with a flurry of excitement and questions. Jason took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. The true magnitude of their mission was only now becoming clear, and the journey ahead promised to be unlike anything they had ever experienced. As the shuttle docked, Jason took a deep breath, preparing to address the eager crowd waiting for them. The moment the airlock opened, they were engulfed by a sea of faces, human, alien, and hybrid alike. Questions flew at them from all directions, but Jason held up his hands, calling for silence. "I know you all have questions," he began, his voice carrying across the docking bay. "We've made discoveries that will change everything we thought we knew about our mission and our place in the galaxy. But first, we need to convene the Leadership Council." As they made their way through the bustling corridors of the hive, Jason couldn't help but notice the subtle changes already taking place. The station's system seemed to hum with a new vitality, as if anticipating the integration of the Lumina seed. The Leadership Council convened in the central chamber, a space that had seen countless strategy sessions and debates. Now it felt different, charged with an energy that seemed to pulse through the very walls of the hive. Jason, Zelna, and Zara stood before the assembled leaders, the artifact and the Lumina seed placed carefully on a table before them. As they recounted their experiences on the planet's surface, the room fell into a stunned silence. "We stand at the threshold of something unprecedented," Jason concluded. "The Lumina seed offers us a chance to connect with a vast network of living planets, to tap into knowledge and capabilities beyond our wildest dreams." The council erupted into a flurry of discussion, but it was clear that the decision had already been made. The integration of the Lumina seed would begin immediately. Over the next few days, the central chamber was transformed into a specialized containment area. Advanced monitoring equipment lined the walls, and a specially designed receptacle was prepared for the seed. Jason, Zelna, and Zara worked tirelessly, their expertise guiding the process. As they carefully placed the seed into its new home, a soft bioluminescent glow began to emanate from it, pulsing with increasing intensity. The light spread throughout the chamber, casting everything in an ethereal blue hue. "It's beautiful," Zelna breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. Jason nodded, feeling a mix of awe and trepidation. "And it's just the beginning." As the integration process continued, unexpected changes began to sweep through the hive. Bioluminescent veins spread across the walls, floors, and ceilings, reminiscent of the alien forest they had explored on Lumina. The hive's internal systems reconfigured themselves, adapting to the influx of living technology. Crew members reported increased efficiency in life support, navigation, and communication systems. The very air seemed charged with possibility. Jason and Zelna found themselves working in close proximity, their bodies often brushing against each other as they navigated the rapidly changing environment. The shared experience of overseeing this transformation deepened their bond, leading to lingering glances and moments of charged silence. As they worked late into the night, monitoring the integration process, Jason found himself increasingly aware of Zelna's presence. The soft glow of the bioluminescent veins cast her features in a mesmerizing light, highlighting the purpose in her eyes. "We're really doing this, aren't we?" Zelna said, her voice barely above a whisper, "changing the very nature of the hive." Jason nodded, his hand unconsciously moving to rest on her shoulder. "It's incredible, and a little terrifying." Their eyes met, and for a moment, the rest of the world seemed to fade away. The air between them crackled with unspoken tension. The moment was broken by a sudden alarm from one of the monitoring stations. They quickly moved to investigate, their bodies still close as they leaned over the console. As the days passed, the changes to the hive became more pronounced. The once metallic exterior began to take on an organic quality, with sections becoming translucent and pulsing with bioluminescent light. The transformation did not go unnoticed by nearby alien species, who sent ships to investigate the strange phenomenon. Jason found himself thrust into a new role, managing diplomatic relations with curious visitors. He worked closely with Zelna to establish protocols for these encounters, their collaboration bringing them into frequent physical contact. During one particularly challenging negotiation with a delegation from a nearby star system, Jason felt Zelna's hand brush against his under the table. The touch sent a jolt through him, and he struggled to maintain his focus on the diplomatic talks. The influx of visitors necessitated the creation of new living quarters within the hive. Jason oversaw the project, working with Zelna to design spaces that would promote interspecies interaction and cooperation. As they stood in one of the newly created habitation areas, surrounded by the soft glow of bioluminescent light, Jason found himself admiring Zelna's profile. She turned, catching his gaze, and a small smile played at the corners of her mouth. "What are you thinking?" she asked, her voice low. Jason hesitated, aware of the growing tension between them. "I'm thinking about how far we've come," he said finally, "and how much further we have to go." Zelna nodded, stepping closer to him. "We make a good team, don't we?" Before Jason could respond, they were interrupted by the arrival of Zara. She paused in the doorway, her eyes darting between her father and Zelna, a mixture of curiosity and concern on her face. "Father," she said, her voice tinged with excitement, "you need to see this." Zara led them to a newly formed chamber deep within the hive. As they entered, Jason and Zelna gasped in unison. The room was alive with swirling patterns of bioluminescent energy, responding to Zara's movements. "I can control it," Zara explained, her eyes shining. "The hive's systems, the environment, I can shape it all with my thoughts." As Jason watched his daughter manipulate the living technology around them, he felt a surge of pride mixed with a touch of apprehension. The power at their fingertips was immense, and with it came great responsibility. The transformation of the hive did not go unnoticed in the wider galaxy. Soon, representatives from various galactic nations began to arrive, eager to witness the changes and discuss potential alliances. The central chamber, once a containment area for the Lumina seed, was converted into a grand meeting hall. Jason found himself at the center of complex negotiations, mediating discussions between vastly different cultures. During one such diplomatic session, A hush fell over the assembled delegates as a new group entered the chamber. They moved with an otherworldly grace, their forms seeming to shimmer and shift in the bioluminescent light. "Greeting," one of the beings said, its voice resonating in their minds rather than their ears. "We are the Athere, descendants of those who created the network of living planets. We have come to guide you in the next phase of your journey." Jason exchanged glances with Zelna and Zara, all of them sensing that they stood on the brink of yet another momentous change. The Athere's arrival promised new challenges and opportunities, and as Jason stepped forward to greet them, he felt the weight of his responsibility more keenly than ever before. The hive hummed around them, alive with possibility, as they prepared to embark on the next stage of their incredible journey. As Jason stepped forward to greet the Athere, a sudden surge of energy pulsed through the chamber. The bioluminescent patterns on the walls intensified, shifting from a soft blue to a vibrant, almost blinding white. "Something's wrong," Zelna said, her voice tight with concern. Before anyone could react, the energy in the room coalesced into a swirling vortex centered on the Athere. The otherworldly beings began to shimmer and distort, their forms stretching and twisting in impossible ways. Jason's instincts kicked in. "Everyone, back away!" he shouted, grabbing Zelna and Zara by the arms and pulling them toward the chamber's exit. The walls of the chamber buckled and warped, organic protrusions sprouting and receding in rapid succession. The floor beneath their feet became unstable, rippling like the surface of a pond. As they stumbled out of the chamber, Jason shouted into his communicator, "This is Commander Reeves. All personnel, evacuate the central sectors immediately. This is not a drill." The corridors of the hive had become a maze of pulsating light and shifting geometry. Jason led Zelna and Zara through the chaos, dodging falling debris and surges of bioluminescent energy that seemed to reach out for them. "We need to get to the central control room," Jason said, his breath coming in short gasps as they ran. They rounded a corner and nearly collided with Krell, who was leading a team of human scientists towards the control room. "Commander," Krell growled, "the hive systems are going haywire. We're losing stability across all sectors." "Let's move," Jason replied, falling in step with the Krell warrior. They burst into the central control room, which was a flurry of activity. Holographic displays flickered and distorted, showing cascading failures throughout the hive systems. Jason immediately took charge. "Krell, work on rerouting power from non-essential systems. We need to stabilize life support and structural integrity." As Krell and the scientists got to work, Jason closed his eyes, reaching out with his enhanced abilities. He could feel the surges of energy coursing through the hive, like rivers of lightning threatening to tear the structure apart. With intense concentration, Jason began to redirect the excess energy away from critical areas. It was like trying to dam a flood with his bare hands, but slowly he started to make progress. Across the room, Zelna had interfaced with one of the hive's biological terminals. Her eyes were closed, her face a mask of concentration. "The Lumina seed," she said, her voice strained. "It's reacting defensively to the Athere's presence. It perceives them as a threat." Jason gritted his teeth, sweat beading on his forehead as he continued to channel the energy. "Can you calm it down?" Zelna nodded, her fingers dancing across the organic interface. "I'm trying to communicate with it, using techniques from my studies of Krell biology. It's responding, but slowly." Meanwhile, Zara had taken up position near the center of the room. Her hands were outstretched, palms facing outward, as she created shimmering barriers of energy at key junctions throughout the hive. "I'm containing the worst of the bioluminescent growth," she said, her voice tight with effort, "but I don't know how long I can hold it." Outside the control room, the transformation of the hive continued unabated. The once sleek external structure now bristled with organic protrusions, some of which began to detach and form independent, smaller vessels. "Commander," one of the scientists called out, "we're detecting multiple objects breaking away from the hive's main structure." Jason's eyes snapped open. "On screen," he ordered. The main display flickered to life, showing a swarm of smaller ships, each pulsing with the same bioluminescent energy as the hive. They moved with purpose, as if they had minds of their own. Seed ships, Zelna breathed, her eyes wide with a mixture of awe and concern. Jason's mind raced, assessing the potential dangers. We need to move the hive away from populated areas, he said. Navigation team, plot a course to the nearest uninhabited sector. As the navigation officers scrambled to comply, alarms blared throughout the control room. A new holographic display materialized, showing a fleet of ships approaching rapidly. It's the human Jem'Hadar Alliance fleet, Krovak reported. They're hailing us. Jason nodded. On screen. Admiral Chen's face appeared, her expression a mixture of concern and persistence. Commander Reeves, we've detected massive energy fluctuations from your position. What's your status? Jason quickly briefed the Admiral on the situation. We're attempting to stabilize the hive, but we need to establish a containment perimeter. Can your fleet assist? Admiral Chen nodded sharply. We'll use modified Krell shield destabilizing technology to create an energy field around the hive. It should help regulate your emissions and protect nearby systems. As the Alliance fleet moved into position, Jason felt a shift in the energy flowing through the hive. He turned to see Zelna slumped over the biological interface, her body going limp. Zelna, he shouted, rushing to her side and catching her before she hit the ground. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused. The seed, she murmured. It's calming down. The integration, it's stabilizing. Jason held her close, suddenly aware of the warmth of her body against his. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the chaos around them seemed to fade away. The air between them crackled with unspoken tension, a mixture of relief, exhaustion, and something deeper, more profound. But the moment was broken by Zara's voice, tinged with excitement and wonder. Father Zelna, you need to see this. Reluctantly, Jason helped Zelna to her feet, and they made their way to where Zara stood, her eyes wide as she manipulated a holographic display. The new areas of the hive, Zara said, her fingers dancing through the air. They're filled with technology I've never seen before. It's like a fusion of Krell, human, and Lumina designs. As they examined the display, showing chambers filled with strange organic machinery, the seed ships began to return, reintegrating with the main structure of the hive. They're bringing back data, one of the scientists reported. Astronomical information, scan results from nearby systems. Jason nodded, his mind already racing with the implications. It seems our hive has become a network of semi-independent units, capable of separate missions while maintaining a connection to the central structure. As the immediate crisis began to subside, Jason knew they had only scratched the surface of the changes wrought by the Athere's arrival. He called for a meeting with Admiral Chen, Queen Hera, and the Krell High Command to discuss their next steps. But before the meeting could begin, alarms blared once again. A massive energy signature had appeared on long-range sensors, approaching rapidly. On screen, Jason ordered, his voice tense. The main display flickered to life, showing a ship of impossible design emerging from a swirling vortex of light. Its surface shimmered with the same bioluminescent patterns as the transformed hive, but on a scale that dwarfed even their massive structure. As the ship drew near, a message came through on all frequencies. Greetings, children of the new age. We are the true Athere, and we have much to discuss. Jason exchanged glances with Selna and Zara, all of them sensing that they stood on the brink of yet another momentous change. Whatever came next, he knew that the bonds they had formed would be tested in ways they could scarcely imagine. Imagine. The massive Athere ship loomed before them, its shimmering surface a testament to technology far beyond their understanding. As Jason prepared to address the assembled leaders and make a decision regarding the Athere's offer, an unexpected event disrupted the proceedings. The hive's newly integrated systems suddenly lit up with activity, detecting an incoming transmission from a distant sector of space. Commander, one of the technicians called out, we're picking up a signal from an uncharted region. It's coming from a planet that bears striking similarities to Lumina. Jason exchanged a quick glance with Selna and Zara. Patch it through to the communication hub, he ordered, already moving towards the newly formed chamber. The trio hurried through the pulsating corridors of the hive. the walls shimmering with bioluminescent energy that seemed to respond to their urgency. As they entered the communication hub, Jason activated the advanced holographic interface. A three-dimensional image materialized before them, filling the room with a soft, ethereal glow. The hologram revealed a lush, bioluminescent world teeming with life forms that resembled evolved versions of the Luminites they had encountered on Lumina. One of the beings stepped forward, its form rippling with patterns of light. When it spoke, its voice resonated with a harmonious quality that filled the chamber. "Greetings, children of the stars. We are the Lumini, descendants of those you know as Luminites. We have long awaited this moment of contact." Jason stepped closer to the hologram, his voice steady despite the shock of this revelation. "I'm Commander Jason Reeves. We're honored to make your acquaintance. Can you tell us more about your people in this world?" The Lumini representative nodded, its form shimmering with each movement. "Centuries ago, our ancestors were transported to this world by the ancient civilization that created the galactic network. Over time, we evolved, developing technology that seamlessly integrates with our bioluminescent biology." As the Lumini spoke, Zelna moved to one of the organic terminals, her fingers dancing across the interface as she analyzed the incoming data. "Jason," she called, her voice tight with urgency, "the genetic markers match. They're definitely related to the Luminites we encountered." The Lumine continued, "We have been observing your progress, and we believe you are the key to reactivating the dormant galactic network. We offer to share our knowledge and technology with you." Before Jason could respond, the hologram flickered, and the Lumini's expression grew grave. "But we must warn you of a looming threat. A powerful, aggressive species known as the Void Hunters seeks to harness the network's power for destructive purposes. Time is of the essence." Jason's mind raced, processing the implications of this new information. He turned to Zara, who was studying the holographic representation of the Lumini world with intense focus. "What do you think?" he asked his daughter. Zara looked up, her eyes glowing faintly with bioluminescent energy. "This could be our chance to understand the true potential of the hive and the Lumina seed. We need to act fast before the Void Hunters can interfere." Jason nodded, his decision made. He tapped his communicator, opening a channel to the assembled leaders. "This is Commander Reeves. We have a situation that requires immediate action. I'm proposing a joint mission to the Lumini homeworld. We need to secure their advanced technology before the Void Hunters can reach it." Admiral Chen's voice came through crisp and authoritative. "Understood, Commander. The human Jem'Hadar Alliance fleet stands ready to assist." The Athere representative added their agreement, their mental voice resonating with a sense of urgency. "We will join this mission. The balance of power in the galaxy may depend on its success." With the decision made, the hive burst into a flurry of activity. Jason, Zelna, and Zara moved to the newly formed docking bay where the seed ships were being prepared for the mission. As they worked to integrate human, Krell, and Lumina technologies into the vessels, Jason found himself working in close proximity to Zelna. The air between them seemed charged with an unspoken tension, their hands brushing against each other as they made adjustments to the ship's systems. In a moment of relative quiet, Jason turned to Zelna, his voice low. "I couldn't have done any of this without you, you know. Your expertise, your support, it's been invaluable." Zelna looked up, her eyes meeting his. "We make a good team, Jason. More than that, Her words were cut off as Zara called out from across the bay. "Father! Zelna! You need to see this!" They hurried over to where Zara stood, her hands outstretched towards one of the seed ships. As they watched, the ship's hull began to pulse with bioluminescent energy, responding to Zara's movements. "I can control it," Zara explained, her voice filled with wonder. "It's like the hive's integration with the Lumina seed has unlocked something in me. I can manipulate the bioluminescent energy at will." Jason watched in awe as his daughter guided the energy, enhancing the ship's defensive systems and propulsion capabilities. "This could be crucial for our mission," he said, his voice filled with a mixture of pride and concern for the challenges ahead. As the final preparations were made, Jason gathered his team for a brief strategy session. The holographic display showed their planned route to the Lumina homeworld, with potential hotspots of Void Hunter activity marked in ominous red. "We'll need to be prepared for anything," Jason said, his gaze sweeping across the assembled crew. "The Void Hunters won't give up easily, and we're venturing into uncharted territory. But together, I believe we can succeed." With a final nod to his team, Jason gave the order to begin boarding the vessels. As he made his way to the command ship, he felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. The fate of multiple species, perhaps even the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. The docking bay doors slid open, revealing the vast expanse of space beyond. The transformed hive, now at the center of a fleet comprised of human, Jem'Hadar, and Athere ships, prepared to embark on its most crucial mission yet. As the engines hummed to life, Jason took his place at the command center, Zelna and Zara flanking him on either side. The stars stretched before them, holding both promise and peril in equal measure. "All ships prepare for departure," Jason announced, his voice steady despite the tension coursing through him. "Our destination, the Lumina homeworld. May fortune favor the bold." With a surge of energy, the fleet launched into the unknown, leaving behind the familiar confines of charted space. As they ventured forth, the hive's bioluminescent hull pulsed with anticipation, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead in the vast, uncharted regions of the galaxy. As the fleet approached the Lumina homeworld, anticipation built among the crew. Jason stood at the command center, his eyes fixed on the swirling, bioluminescent orb growing larger on the main display. "Prepare for atmospheric entry," he announced, his voice steady despite the tension coursing through him. Zelna, Zara, ready for descent. The seed ship detached from the main fleet, its organic hull pulsing with energy as it plunged into the planet's atmosphere. Suddenly, the vessel shuddered violently, alarms blaring throughout the command center. "We've hit some kind of energy field," Zelna called out, her hands flying over the control interface. "It's interfering with our landing trajectory." Jason's enhanced reflexes kicked in as he grabbed the manual controls. His fingers danced across the panel, adjusting thrust and angle with preternatural precision. The ship groaned under the strain, but slowly, its descent stabilized. "Hang on," Jason shouted as the ground rushed up to meet them. With a final burst from the maneuvering thrusters, the seed ship touched down on the outskirts of a sprawling, luminous metropolis. As the trio emerged from their vessel, they were greeted by a breathtaking sight. The Lumina capital city stretched before them, a vast network of pulsating organic structures that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Buildings twisted and spiraled into the sky, their surfaces alive with cascading patterns of light. A delegation of Lumini approached, their bodies glowing with intricate, ever-shifting designs. Their forms were more humanoid than the original Luminites, but still unmistakably alien. One stepped forward, her luminescence intensifying as she spoke. "Welcome to our world, travelers. I am Zara, Chief Architect of Lumini Technology. We've been expecting you." Jason inclined his head in greeting. "I'm Commander Jason Reeves. This is Zelna and my daughter Zara. We're here to—" "There's no time to waste," Zara interrupted, her tone urgent. "The Void Hunters approach. Follow me." The Lumini led them through the city, passing structures that seemed to shift and reconfigure as they walked. Citizens paused in their activities to watch the strange visitors, their bodies flickering with curiosity and apprehension. They arrived at a massive, pulsating edifice at the heart of the city. As they entered, Jason, Zelna, and Zara found themselves in a cavernous chamber filled with a colossal organic supercomputer. Bioluminescent tendrils snaked across the walls and ceiling, connecting various stations where Lumini operators worked in perfect synchronization with the living technology. Zara turned to face them, her expression grave. "This is the central hub of our defense system. It can generate the energy barrier you proposed, but it requires a direct neural link with compatible beings to function at full capacity." "Compatible beings?" Zara asked, her eyes wide as she took in the awe-inspiring sight. "Yes," Zara confirmed. "Despite our advanced evolution, we lack the necessary genetic diversity to fully power the system. But you three, You may be able to form the link we need." Jason exchanged glances with Zelna and Zara. Without hesitation, they nodded their agreement. "We'll do it," Jason said firmly. Zara led them to a chamber deep within the structure where 3 pod-like devices awaited them. As they each entered a pod, the organic technology began to meld with their bodies, forming a symbiotic connection. The moment the link activated, Jason's consciousness expanded exponentially. He could sense the entire Lumina defense network, feel the approaching Void Hunter fleet like a dark cloud on the horizon of his mind. Working in unison with Zelna and Zara, Jason began the process of activating the dormant nodes of the galactic network. Energy coursed through his body, setting every nerve ending alight with searing pain. Outside the chamber, the city transformed. Buildings shifted and reconfigured, forming a vast interconnected web of energy conduits. The planet's surface came alive with pulsating patterns visible from space. In orbit, Admiral Chen's voice crackled over the comms. "Commander, the Void Hunters have arrived earlier than expected. We're engaging them now, but we need that barrier up." Jason gritted his teeth, pushing himself to channel more energy. He could feel Zelna's presence in the link, her scales shimmering with blinding light. Zara's hybrid physiology acted as a stabilizing force between them, adapting more readily to the alien systems. As the energy built to a crescendo, Jason made a critical decision. He began to channel an unprecedented amount of power through his body, pushing the limits of his enhanced physiology. Zelna and Zara, sensing his intentions through their shared link, followed suit. The resulting surge of energy cascaded through the galactic network. Ancient mechanisms sprang to life across dozens of star systems. The barrier expanded rapidly, encompassing not just the Lumina system, but a significant portion of the surrounding sector. A massive shock wave rippled through space, scattering the Void Hunter fleet. Many of their ships were disabled, while others retreated through rapidly closing gaps in the barrier. As the immediate threat subsided, the neural link disengaged. Jason, Zelna, and Zara collapsed, their bodies crackling with residual energy. Medical teams rushed in, working to stabilize their conditions. Jason's last conscious thought before succumbing to exhaustion was of the monumental change they had set in motion. The galaxy would never be the same, and he knew that their greatest challenges still lay ahead. As consciousness slowly returned, Jason became aware of a faint, pulsating glow surrounding him. He blinked, trying to focus his vision, and realized the light was emanating from his own skin. "Easy there, Commander," a soothing voice said. Dr. Ilara, the human xenobiologist, came into view, her face a mixture of concern and fascination. "You've been through quite an ordeal." Jason attempted to sit up, his muscles protesting with every movement. "Zelna, Zara, are they?" "They're fine," Dr. Ilara assured him, gently easing him back onto the medical bed. "They're recovering in adjacent rooms. But I need to discuss something important with you." As the doctor explained the changes to their physiology, Jason's mind raced. He examined his glowing skin, watching as the bioluminescence pulsed in sync with his heartbeat. "So we're, what, hybrids now?" "In a sense, yes," Dr. Ilara confirmed. "The energy surge from the neural link has altered your DNA, integrating aspects of human, Krell, and Lumina genetics. We're still studying the full extent of these changes, but it appears to have granted you enhanced abilities." Before Jason could fully process this information, the door slid open, revealing Zelna. Her scales had rearranged into intricate shifting patterns that seemed to reflect her emotional state. Their eyes met, and a spark of electricity passed between them. "Jason," Zelna breathed, moving to his side, "I felt you wake up. I think we're still connected somehow." As they touched, the bioluminescent patterns on their skin synchronized, creating a mesmerizing display. Dr. Ilara watched in fascination, furiously taking notes on her datapad. The moment was interrupted by the arrival of Zara, who practically bounded into the room. Her form seemed more fluid than before, shifting subtly as she moved. "Father, Zelna, you won't believe what I can do now." To demonstrate, Zara held out her arm, which elongated and changed texture, forming a perfect replica of a Lumina tendril. "I can adapt to any environment," she exclaimed, her eyes shining with excitement. As the trio marveled at their new abilities, Admiral Chen's voice came through the intercom. "Commander Reeves, glad to see you're awake. We have a situation that requires your immediate attention." Pushing aside his lingering fatigue, Jason rose to his feet. "What's the status, Admiral?" "We've neutralized the remaining Void Hunter vessels in the sector," Chen reported. "But that's not why I'm calling. The Lumina chief architect, Zara, has discovered something in their central supercomputer. She insists on speaking with you directly." Minutes later, Jason, Zelna, and Zara stood before Zara in the heart of the Lumina capital. The chief architect's bioluminescence pulsed with urgency as she spoke. "The activation of the galactic network has triggered a hidden protocol," Zara explained, gesturing to a holographic display of an unknown star system. "These coordinates, we believe they lead to the homeworld of the ancient civilization that created the network." Jason studied the hologram intently. "This could be the key to understanding everything we've encountered. We need to mount an expedition immediately." A quick conference call with Queen Hera and the Krell High Command confirmed the importance of this discovery. Plans were set in motion for an expedition to the mysterious star system, with the newly enhanced trio at its helm. As preparations began, Jason found himself drawn to the hive, now orbiting Lumina. The ship had undergone significant modifications, integrating Lumina technology with its existing systems. He marveled at the fusion of organic and mechanical components, feeling a new connection to the vessel through his altered physiology. In one of the hive's newly formed organic chambers, Jason and Zelna found a moment of privacy. The room's bioluminescent walls pulsed in response to their presence, creating an intimate atmosphere. "I never thought I'd find myself here," Zelna said softly, her scales shimmering with a mix of emotions. "Part of me still can't believe how much has changed." Jason reached out, tracing the patterns on her arm. Where their skin touched, waves of light rippled outward. "Change isn't always a bad thing," he murmured. Their eyes met, and the air between them seemed to crackle with energy. Without a word, they came together in a passionate embrace. The chamber around them erupted in a dazzling display of light and color, mirroring the intensity of their connection. Meanwhile, Zara worked tirelessly with Lumini scientists, pushing the limits of her new abilities. In a specially designed training facility, she practiced rapid adaptations to various environments. Her body shimmered and flowed as she formed gills, fins, and even wing-like appendages. "Incredible," one of the Lumini researchers remarked as Zara effortlessly transitioned from an aquatic form to an aerial one. "Your hybrid physiology has unlocked possibilities we never imagined." As the day of departure approached, tensions rose. The arrival of an Athere delegation added a new layer of complexity to the mission. Their ethereal forms seemed to flicker with concern as they voiced their reservations about exploring the ancient civilization's homeworld. "We understand the potential benefits," the Athere representative said, their mental voice resonating with caution. "But we must also consider the risks. The activation of the galactic network may have unforeseen consequences." Despite their concerns, the Athere agreed to provide a small team of experienced explorers to accompany the expedition. Their unique perspective and abilities would prove invaluable in the unknown territory that lay ahead. The night before launch, the Lumina capital erupted in celebration. The air filled with bioluminescent displays as representatives from all allied species gathered to commemorate their victory in the dawn of a new era. As Jason, Zelna, and Zara moved through the crowd, their altered appearances drew curious glances and excited whispers. Their public interactions, particularly the evident closeness between Jason and Zelna, became a topic of much discussion among the gathered dignitaries. Queen Hera, observing via hologram, gave a subtle nod of approval. "An interesting development," she commented to her advisors. "This union could have significant diplomatic implications." As the first light of dawn broke over the Lumina world, final preparations for the expedition were underway. The hive, now a testament to interspecies cooperation, stood ready in orbit. Seed ships, each crewed by a diverse team of specialists, were docked and prepared for launch. Jason, Zelna, and Zara boarded the hive's command module, their bodies humming with nervous energy. As they took their positions, their altered physiologies interfaced seamlessly with the ship's organic controls. The hive came to life around them, systems pulsing with anticipation. With a final check of all systems, Jason gave the order. All ships, prepare for departure. Our destination, the coordinates of the ancient civilization's homeworld. The hive and its accompanying seed ships broke orbit, their advanced propulsion systems engaging. As they approached the edge of the Lumina system, a newly formed node in the galactic network pulsed with energy. Jason shared a look with Zelna and Zara, their eyes reflecting the mixture of excitement and apprehension they all felt. "This is it," he said, his voice steady. "Whatever we find out there, we face it together." With a brilliant flash of bioluminescent energy, the expedition vanished into the depths of space, leaving behind the known galaxy and venturing into the vast unknown. The secrets of the ancient civilization awaited them, promising to reshape their understanding of the universe and their place within it. The hive and its accompanying seed ships hurtled through the depths of space, riding the waves of energy created by the galactic network. Jason, Zelna, and Zara, their bodies humming with newfound power, stood at the helm of the command module. Their altered physiologies interfaced seamlessly with the ship's organic controls, creating a symbiotic relationship between crew and vessel. As they approached their destination, the anticipation aboard the ship was palpable. The unknown coordinates pulsed on the holographic display, a beacon guiding them to the homeworld of the ancient civilization that had created the network. Suddenly, the swirling vortex of energy surrounding them dissipated, and the fleet emerged into an uncharted star system. The sight that greeted them left everyone speechless. A colossal Dyson sphere encompassed the system's central star, its surface covered in intricate, pulsating bioluminescent patterns that reminded Jason of the Lumina architecture, but on a scale beyond comprehension. By the stars, Zelna breathed, her scales shimmering with awe and excitement. Before anyone could react further, a booming voice filled the command module, emanating from every surface of the ship. "Unidentified vessels, you have entered restricted space. Transmit identification and state your purpose immediately." Jason shared a quick glance with Zelna and Zara. Their eyes conveyed a mixture of willpower and uncertainty. Without a word, they placed their hands on the organic interface, their minds working in perfect unison. As one, they transmitted a response, their unique genetic signatures, a blend of human, Krell, and Lumina DNA, coursing through the ship's systems and out into space. For a tense moment, silence reigned. Then, as if responding to an unspoken command, the Dyson sphere's surface began to shift. Massive sections realigned, revealing a colossal docking bay large enough to accommodate their entire fleet. "Access granted," the voice announced, its tone noticeably warmer. "Welcome, inheritors of the network. You may proceed to dock." With practiced precision, Jason guided the hive towards the opening, the seed ships following in tight formation. As they entered the massive structure, the scale of the engineering feat became even more apparent. The docking bay stretched for kilometers in every direction, its walls lined with pulsating energy conduits and unfamiliar technology. Once the ships were securely docked, Jason turned to address the assembled crew. "We're about to step into the unknown. Stay alert, but remember, we're here as explorers and potential allies. Let's make first contact count." Leading a diverse team including Zelna, Zara, and representatives from each allied species, Jason disembarked from the hive. As they stepped onto the deck of the Dyson sphere, the ground beneath their feet seemed to come alive, pulsing with energy that resonated with their altered physiologies. They found themselves in a vast, cathedral-like chamber that dwarfed even the impressive docking bay. The walls were adorned with swirling patterns of light that shifted and changed, as if reacting to their presence. At the center of the chamber stood a towering structure, its purpose unclear, but its importance obvious. As the team approached the central structure, two massive holographic figures flickered into existence. They towered above the explorers, their forms semi-transparent but incredibly detailed. One appeared masculine, the other feminine, but both possessed an otherworldly quality that defied easy categorization. The masculine figure spoke, its voice resonating not just in their ears but in their minds. "Greetings, children of the younger races. We are the architects, the last survivors of those who created the galactic network." The feminine figure continued, "Your arrival here and the activation of the network marks the culmination of a grand experiment eons in the making. You have proven yourselves worthy of our legacy." Jason stepped forward, his voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. "We are honored to meet you, architects. I am Commander Jason Reeves of Earth, and these are my companions and allies from across our galaxy. We've come seeking knowledge and understanding." The architect's holographic forms shimmered with what might have been approval. "And knowledge you shall receive, Jason Reeves of Earth. But first you must understand the true purpose of this sphere and the choice that lies before you." As the architects began their explanation, Jason felt a subtle shift in the air around him. The chamber seemed to pulse with anticipation, as if the very fabric of reality held its breath, waiting for the revelations to come.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.